And we're back to Salt of the Streets podcast.
We meet every other week to exercise our free speech and put it on the internet, right? Because we think that there are some things that can be valuable to other people. We don't collect it. We don't ask people what fucking color they are when they sign up for Facebook because we don't give a shit and it's racist to fucking do that. Like, it's like, we don't do that. So I don't know. It was horrible. Yeah, to try and make him straight. It was fucked up. So I'm like, this is fucked up, but there's no ghosts involved here, you know? Like, this is.
So that's where that genre of porn came from.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And just like a red, white, and blue phoenix rising from the ashes of political bipartisanship, we are back to Salt of the Streets podcast.
This is Saturday, November 2nd, 1:48 p.m., episode 72.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Salt of the Streets podcast, your one and only source for social and political commentary and all the weekly news, pop culture, and sports that you can handle. And the best part about the whole deal, it's all built from the ground up for people like you and me, the everyday normal person. So come down and join us as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and continue our endless efforts to bridge the gaps between people and information. As always, we are your hosts. I am Colin.
I'm Donovan.
And coming up on this week's show, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead, and Conan the Destroyer did it. And then that's what I wanted to say in the opening. I just couldn't find a place for it. But yeah, we're gonna talk about that real quick. We got a whole grab bag show today. We're gonna be talking some of the testimony that's been going down from the impeachment inquiry hearings. There's been a lot of major events in that this past week, and you know, we got a whole manner of stuff we talking about.
Whole slew of topics here today.
And if we get down to the small short ones, I got ones that I haven't talked to you about. The ones that I always keep in reserve to be like, hey, I wonder if he knows about this. Yeah. This is wild.
Word.
So I'm excited.
All right.
How was before we get into it, how was your Halloween? What did you guys end up doing on Halloween? I know what you did the other day, but
so on Halloween it was a Thursday, so there was football on, and I also
San Francisco was on.
Yeah, I was
fucking Garoppolo, 37 some points, and I'm kicking myself in the ass because I didn't play him.
On your bench.
Yep, sitting on the bench.
Yeah, that's all right. Minshew should have a pretty good week this week.
He's playing the Titans, I think, right? Or the Texans.
The Texans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Texans make me nervous.
That's all right. We'll be okay.
All right.
No J.J. Watt on the Texans anymore. He's out for the rest of the year. He fucked up his pec. So Jadeveon Clowney plays for the Hawks now. So yeah, no, I think you'll be right. Sweet. So yeah, we watched football and I was super sick. So we just walked the baby around a little bit. Just kind of took him to people's houses that we know in Keyport, and then I made fried rice, which was delicious.
Oh, dude.
And then I fell asleep on the couch, was making my costume, drawing the chalk lines on it and stuff like that. And then was fucking it up and getting irritated and throwing chalk and swearing and getting pissed. And, so eventually
that cannot be easy. A lot of long vertical lines and they got to look good.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It was a whole deal. And so eventually I just laid back with the dog and then I fell asleep on the couch.
Do you watch scary movies during Halloween or Halloween movies?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we didn't that day because the football game was on, and then I don't remember what we watched after that because I was asleep.
More of a seasonal thing, though.
Yeah, and we like scary movies, so we'll watch them, whenever the mood strikes, But we tried to watch, there's a fucking show on Netflix that's about, people being haunted. It's called, Haunted or some shit like that. And it just is not very good, It's okay, but it's just not scary. Then why am I watching this, Why
am I watching this? One
person, not to belittle the horrible shit this guy went through, but it wasn't even a ghost. He just was abused by his family for being gay. And it's this is horrible. You weren't haunted by a ghost. Your family was just fucked up, His mom would blow him and shit. It was horrible. Yeah. To try and make him straight. It was fucked up. So I'm this is fucked up, but there's no ghosts involved here, this
So
isn't.
that's where that genre of porn came from. I always
Yeah,
wondered,
so
like,
it's-
what kind of sick people would be into this?
It's, I think that's really strange too. There's like the huge amount of like step parent. Like,
So
shit
I
that's
blame
like,
it
this is
completely
weird.
on this one haunting ghost show.
I think this is pretty new. I don't know that this is the start of that, but it's certainly not helping. It's certainly not helping.
On that, well, I guess that's not really that kind of level, but segue enough.
We're done talking about that. It's not on that note.
We're not gonna,
It's on a completely different note.
yeah. The podcast you made me listen to from,
Yeah.
which is one of those offshoots of NPR from this.
Yes, Invisibilia is what this one was called.
And this, I was surprised. This was back from 2015.
yeah.
This is old.
Right.
I don't
Right.
remember people talking about this back then. Right? Like it was,
right.
I'm sure it was there,
Well,
obviously, but like it definitely wasn't in the mainstream conversation back then.
and I think that it had to be, if it's being covered by Invisibilia, and we,
Oh, yeah.
we both worked together in 2015, I think, because that was 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I will have been for 5 in April. So depending on when in 2015 this came out, we were working together.
weird.
And so,
Well, because
so these discussions were being had,
Yeah.
I think like on Joe Rogan and shit, because when I started listening to Joe Rogan was probably in like 2016.
Oh, really?
And yeah. And they were talking about this type of shit then. He was having people on having discussions like that then. And I was like, this seems really backwards,
I just wasn't in
But
the discussion then, I guess.
it's when I first started dipping my toes, So
Mm-hmm. That's
this
wild.
podcast that we're discussing, right, is an episode of Invisibilia from 2015. And this is just where we're going to start today.
The power of categories.
Yes. And so half of it is about a guy who is making an Indian retirement community in Florida, which was kind of interesting, right? And so
but
the whole episode was interesting, actually, if I'm being honest.
yeah.
I thought the whole thing was really interesting.
The whole thing opened up with a discussion with like psychologist about like children's ability to like start to categorize things inside their minds. And they were talking about this experiment they did with like showing them cats versus dogs. And,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this is a fuzzy 4-legged thing. Like, the very broad categories. And then it just started to kind of get, I can't remember the line, but it was earlier that we're talking about. And then it's like, this is a discussion about sex, gender, identity, blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, this is what this is going to be.
So this episode, which I'm not going to link to in the notes, but if you want to listen to it, you can go and find it. It's still available. And
Yeah, they do it in seasons on that podcast, and it was in season 1.
really easy to find. Yeah. So they interview a woman named Paige, right? And so the context for this is that at the time when this was done, they call it bi-gender in this. I think it's called gender fluid now, right? And it doesn't matter.
The rules were all
But-
changing.
So at the time she was gender fluid. She was like switching back and forth. And then after the podcast was recorded, she stopped switching back and forth. And now she just identifies as a woman. So they had to go back and even edit this podcast because they used both of her names at the time.
Yeah.
And then afterwards it was considered dead naming because she didn't use that other male name anymore, even because she didn't switch in like back and forth. So this podcast had been edited for this purpose. So I found it on Reddit, and underneath is a whole stream or a whole subreddit, a thread, of people, sharing their stories.
I was like, you can't ask me about Reddit because I still don't know how it works.
Oh, I've only been on a couple of times because it's really easy to go into like a really fucked up dark place of Reddit. Like really easy to just click on just a few subreddits and you're somewhere else and you're like, what is going on here? Anyway, so
The power of Reddit.
So this woman is talking about how at the time she switches back and forth between identifying as a male and identifying as a female, right? And, was in the Navy, I think, for a long time. Is that what it was? She was in the Navy. She's in the Armed Forces.
Navy.
Yeah, for like a long time, and then fell in love and, would always have little visions or whatever of like wanting to be a woman. And, then one day decided that she's going to start dressing different and like going back and forth and doing that, right? And
the presentation of all the shifting was presented very, very abruptly, like very like it was a very ominous type of thing. It was
so
traumatic.
Much so, yeah,
it was very traumatic.
So much so, right, that the two different genders had different like characteristics about them. The woman was, more outgoing and open and willing to discuss things, and the male was very closed off and quiet. And in the middle of this interview, I think it's when they start to talk about like her switching back and forth. She's like, oh, like I'm uncomfortable and like needs to take a break and goes to the bathroom, comes back and is like, oh, when I was in there, I switched into guy mode, and says that. I'm not saying, I'm not by any means being derogatory by using the term guy mode. That is the term that is used by this individual in this podcast. And there's like a notable difference in the demeanor of this individual in the way that like I said, very closed off, one word answers.
Oh yeah. It was a totally different person.
And then in this interview, there's like little things clipped in where they're talking to different psychologists and people, scientists, whatever the fuck. And the first person is talking about how they rounded up a whole slew of people who were gender fluid, right? And ran them through a battery of psychological tests that are generally split between the sexes. And like the examples they gave is like a spatial awareness test where generally men will do better. And then like an organizational test where generally women will do better. Ran them through a battery of tests that are this way. And that these people will perform better on the tests depending on how they're identifying on this day, right? But also said that there's not the same psychological function like as someone who has like a split personality disorder. Like there's not the same when you have a split personality disorder, like the chemistry in your brain changes when your personality shifts. But for some reason, there's not the same thing that happens when the genders change in these individuals. Right. And so as an unprofessional, non-medical I'm not a doctor, right? I'm super confused. Really, really, really confused how if the biological and psychological function is not the same, there is the same outcome, right? I don't understand where it's manifesting in this, like where that's coming from, right? And so it seemed to me that it was, and again, I'm not a fucking doctor, right? But it almost seemed like if you know, right, if you are someone, Colin, are someone that identifies as gender fluid, and you're in this test, that you're going to be given the same tests on 2 different days. We're going to ask you to come in one day when you're identifying as a woman and one day when you're identifying as a man. And we're going to have you run through these same tests. After going in the first day, you know what I'm saying? If not before, you're going to know what these tests are, right? And I obviously didn't see the research paper from this study that they did. It was just what they discussed on this podcast. But I would assume, at some point it's lined out for you what tests you're going to be doing. Like I said, even if only after the first time you do it, you know what you're going to do afterwards. Yeah. And I thought this again, especially when they're interviewing this woman, Paige, and she comes out and she's identifying as a woman now, and she's way more closed off, way less willing to answer these questions, Like if you know that these are characteristics that are being attributed to each genders, then do you not even subconsciously have some effect on how these things are manifesting, and how these characteristics are manifesting when you're identifying as this way, especially if there's no psychological or biological basis in why these things would be manifesting. You know what I'm saying?
But just because they don't exist yet doesn't mean they don't exist yet. You know what I mean? Like they're just because we don't have them now doesn't mean we might discover something, which is I mean, I say that just as a caveat because that's the way the world is. That's the way life is. We like to think it happens in black and white, but it never really does. And in this particular situation, though, I got the same feeling. I was like, well, you know how many, once you started looking into like nutrition and stuff like that, how many like studies did you come across that once you learned how to look into a study and like what constitutes a good study, like how many of those were just like, well, that's a fucking garbage study.
Yeah.
Like most of the information out there in the nutrition world is garbage. What if this study is garbage? And who knows? Like I would like to look at that, and I don't think I'm being bigoted or anything for wanting to know the validity of the numbers and science.
No, I don't think so.
So I don't think you're wrong to think that way.
I have a hard time.
I can't trust anything anymore.
I
can't trust a New York Times article anymore. It's like I can't trust all these studies, and I need to do the own work to dig into it.
Because it sounds to me, and I'm not making any accusations, I'm not trying to be derogatory, but it sounds to me, especially when it's described that way, that the different genders have different characteristics, that sounds to me like a split personality. Mm-hmm. Like that doesn't sound like a different identity in gender. Mm-hmm. That sounds like because we're
gender dysphoria.
We are under the general understanding that you certainly can come across women that have a more stereotypically male demeanor, but they're still women. They're still women. They still like men. They're still like all this other things still apply. They just like these other things.
Donovan, you are walking on thin ice, baby.
I'm so I don't understand how. I'm super totally confused, like how that could be the case. And then later in this podcast, they speak to 3 different gender scientists from 3 different countries, right? And the 3 of them who have all been studying gender for their entire careers. 2 of them in Europe, 1 of them in America, in San Francisco, right? Let's put that out there. Do you want some of this?
No, I already had a second one.
Okay.
They fill the growler up all the time.
And again, this is not me saying that this is what these fucking scientists said, right? At least in 2015. Maybe they've recanted these statements since then.
It does happen.
I'm not sure. But the 3 of them said that this phenomenon, for lack of a better term, at the time of like gender fluidity, it is not like really a thing, right? Mm-hmm. They said that that's just not how gender works, like the switching back and forth. And that doesn't, again, leave out the possibility of some psychological function that has not yet been identified throughout
I think
science,
that's what, if I remember right, the language they used when they talked about after that study was like, yeah, they say that, but still it's here.
Right.
Then they just keep rolling.
Yeah.
And so that is, I think,
except for the woman in San Francisco, right? The scientist in San Francisco said, no, these people are transgender. They just have not come to the same psychological point as other people who have transitioned either, even if they haven't done the surgery, right? Where they're living their life as the other gender, as the other sex. These people are transgender. They just haven't like come to terms with it. There's some type of block that's inhibiting them from just going all the way in transitioning, right? Mm-hmm. That's what this woman said, is like, these people are just trans. Like they're just not all the way there yet, And that seemed to be the case where later in this podcast, at the end, this woman who started by talking about how she's gender fluid is like, oh, I don't switch anymore. It just doesn't happen. Yep. I'm just a woman now. That seems to hold up with, and that is a one particular example, right? But it seems to fit with what this woman in San Francisco, this gender scientist, said in San Francisco, that these people are trans. They're just not there yet. They just haven't gone all the way yet to the full, this is just where I'm at, And I think that that's really interesting.
Yeah. And the nice thing I will say about this whole thing is that we still don't really know what the fuck's going on. Like nobody knows. And so it's interesting because we get to all have our own opinions and try to come to some kind of objective opinion based on what's around us now. But it's always going to change.
And just to be extra clear, right? I would never Okay, not never, because there are some things that I would tell someone is silly. But on the whole, right, I would not disrespect someone in the way by not addressing them in the pronoun they've asked me to address them in, right? There's some things that, depending on the day, I might tell you no. Like, just depending on how my day has been, I might be like, no, I'm not going to do that. But on the whole, that's not something I'm going to do, right? I just want to leave the possibility out there, because I don't want to one day someone to be like, you said you would never do this, when I've been like, I'm not going to fucking call you G today. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's because that's a possibility, but that's besides the point. So in general, that's not something I would do, right? I wouldn't do that. I will, for the most part, just address you however you'd like to be addressed, because that's the right thing to do, right? But so I don't think that it generally adds value to anything to have these type of discussions, to draw away from like the general consensus, or at least not even the general consensus, the now popular argument, of like all the different pronouns and stuff like that. That's just not something I personally subscribe to. I don't think it generally adds value to anything to have the discussion of a dissenting opinion, because it just stands to kind of like draw controversy, But this
the old devil's advocate.
It's just not I feel very strong in my view about that, and I'm not gonna.
You don't need to do it for everything,
right? But there's some things that just aren't worth having that discussion, and this is one of those things that's not generally worth discussing.
It's probably just because it's equally as unknowing.
Yeah, but this is a place where we come to have such discussions.
It is.
Excuse me.
That's very true.
So I'm very open to hearing anybody else's opinions that are dissenting from ours, in agreement with ours, whatever you'd like to hear, especially if you want to listen to this podcast and tell us what you thought about it. Not ours, this episode of Invisibilia. I mean, well, obviously listen to ours too, but if you want to listen to this episode of Invisibilia and let us know what you think.
It's very interesting, the whole thing.
It was just confusing to me.
I loved the part about the Indian retirement home.
I'm sure you did.
It was so fascinating, because that's like a whole thing about like freedom of association to me.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, yeah, that's fucking great. I love it. And I thought it was really good. It was a very interesting. I got really angry, and then I was like really intrigued, and then it just held throughout the whole episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, full marks for fucking that one.
Anyway,
it's much better than the YouTube video I sent you earlier this week.
Yeah, that fucking robot. I told you that was not.
Dude, it was totally fake. It's so fake. But I was legit freaked the fuck out for about 10 minutes.
I've seen a lot of people. We'll talk about that for a second. There's videos going around of dudes essentially beating the shit out of this robot that they claim to have built. And they're not like really claiming it. There's videos that are just being made of these dudes beating up a robot. It's a thing going on
with Boston Dynamics.
Yeah.
They have this robot, and they've kept a very public, interest in it. And so there's a lot of YouTube videos that follow the evolution of this thing that they created that was starting to like pick up a box, and then it was starting to like learn how to walk, and then it learned how to walk on top of boxes, and then it was like doing some parkour shit. And then all of a sudden this video came out, which I think is more or less a spoof video, or like,
Well, this is the second one.
Yes.
This one where it's shooting guns is the second one, because the first one, they was trying to pick up a box and they're beating the shit out of it. They're hitting it with hockey sticks and fucking kicking it over
they
stuff.
still do that.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
Ones,
yeah. And so, but in this first fake one, they're fucking with it. But now in this next one, it's a fucking CGI video of this.
It's basically
robot
chapping.
Like
it's
shooting guns and fucking just all this nonsense that
it's so wild. Dude, like tactical training.
I'd seen be shared a bunch of times, and I'm like, you motherfuckers! Like, this is not real. Like, why?
But it's awesome.
But people are really convinced by it. If they're only watching it one time, then they're convinced by it. And that's the worst part, is you got to watch it 3-4 times all the way through.
When back in the 90s or whenever, when they came out with that parental advisory sticker, you had to put on explicit lyrics CDs and tapes and stuff. It's like, is that going to have to come with like videos now? You're going to have to put up big black, banner on the top that says parody. Not real.
Well, all right. So let's go into Zuckerberg, right?
Let's do it.
This is what we're doing. So
I thought it would be a halfway decent segue.
That's all right, because there's been two different kind of battling ideals that have come out in the last few weeks about this, right?
Yeah. Very interesting.
As far as Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg came out and said that they were not going to fact check any political ads or any ads that are going to be placed on Facebook. They're just going to put them out as is. And then Twitter came out, I think it's just this week, said that they were not going to allow any political ads at all on Facebook or on Twitter, right? And last week, 2 weeks ago, if you're listening to this podcast on Monday, Mark Zuckerberg testified in Congress, and I wrote a blog post about it, in which he was there to talk about Libra, like the digital currency that Facebook is trying to get into. And also, for some reason, he was talking about the settlement that he reached with HUD earlier in the year. And then he was talking about the political ads thing on Facebook, right? And his justification, not even justification, his reason for why they're not doing this is that he thinks that it should be up to individuals to see the ads and recognize whether or not lies are being said in these ads and which political appointees and candidates can be trusted and cannot be trusted. And I think that there is an immense amount of value in that, and people having to do research to know whether or not people are lying. The problem comes in that people don't like to do that research. But I don't think that it's wrong for Facebook to make this decision, and it's being painted, especially when he's testifying as, oh, well, so you think it's okay to just allow people to spread lies on the internet then? It's like, no, I don't think that it's good for you to lie. In fact, I think it's wrong for you to lie, but I don't think that it's up to Facebook to decide what you get to see as a citizen and as an individual on your own Facebook. That's not up to me. That's why shit gets targeted to you and you see it, or you click that you don't want to see it and you don't see it again, And I don't think that there's a problem with that. I think that the spin on it is really disingenuous. I think it's super biased. And I think that it completely takes any personal responsibility or personal ownership away from the content that people are consuming. We talked about that the first time that he testified in front of Congress like 2 or 3 years ago, and how they're shitting on him for allowing Russia to have accounts on Facebook. And how could you let them make these events and people showed up? How could you allow people to like these fucking Facebook pages? It's like, well, hold the fuck on. Isn't it up to you to look into whether or not this is true? Or if you're reading a fucking story from The Onion, why? That's the same thing. We allow The Onion to post whatever the fuck they want, but for some reason it's up to Facebook to decide whether or not you can share, an article from The Onion on Facebook. What the fuck?
No, it's infuriating to me because I was really interested in the conversation that was supposed to be had about Libra. Because I noticed, when Bitcoin and stuff was first coming online, and then there's a massive boom in this e-commerce stuff, all this blockchain currency. It's everywhere now. And I'm really interested to see the government's reaction to their loss of the central control over all currency. And so I was really interested to hear about that. And I was highly upset that for the most part, I didn't hear anything worthwhile.
Mostly not about Libra at all.
It always comes back to this, the U.S. government essentially, through the mouthpieces of these committees.
Yeah.
I get the vibe that they're trying to essentially say that Facebook and then social media in general, you can't handle it the way we want you to handle it. So we, as the government, want to, be able to regulate your industry, and we want us to get into this industry.
Well, and there was many people that asked him why,
because they can't control it,
right? Why they felt like they didn't need to be regulated and all this shit. And
It's a similar discussion to net neutrality in my mind.
Yeah, and I don't know whether or not. I certainly don't think that Facebook needs to be broken up, especially not over this issue that people have here of whether or not they're going to fact check people's ads.
Yeah,
I don't.
This is we call them platforms for a reason. Right. And within their platforms, they have special rules because it's their giant ring for us to all jump in and fucking yell at each other and talk to each other and share things with each other. It's big meeting platforms. That's all it is spaces for us to interact with one another.
Yeah.
Why are they responsible for everything that goes on in there? That's our problem. We need to not do those things.
Yeah, I think there's a very limited amount of things. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think there's like a very limited amount of things that Facebook or Twitter or any platform should be taking off of the site. You know, I mean, obviously, if people are fucking paying, I don't think political ads should be paid for in fucking rubles, you know, or in money from an outside country. That's probably not the best way for things to be paid for, you know?
Let's maybe set a rule that, paid political advertisements have to be funded in U.S. currency.
You know,
maybe, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get around that.
Right.
That's perfectly fine. But still, we might as well add that.
Right.
It's just like, okay, check. We don't have to worry about this.
No terrorists, you know, things like that. There's some things that can be pretty easily written off to not be on those platforms, you know?
Yeah. And again, there's always ways, because there's going to be naysayers to be like, well, yeah, they're still going to get their money in anyways. Yes, they will. But it's fucking security theater at that point. Let's just do it because it's a good rule to have. It doesn't hurt anything. Let's just do that. There will be people that get around it, but some of them won't.
And it's concerning to me because, like I said, the spin on it, I think, is, and I don't want to continue to use the word disingenuous because I think that it's, almost bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. It's this issue of personal responsibility is being spun into whether or not a company can handle itself, right? Which is, I think, almost fear-mongering, right, on the side of the Democrats to make it like, well, the government will take care of it for you. You know, just Facebook can't handle it. Companies can't handle it. So let us decide what you can and can't see. And it's concerning to me that people are willing to give that power to the government, right? Or they're at least stepping into an area where they're beginning to be willing to cede that power to the government. You know, I don't think that people should be willing to let the government decide what we can and can't see. You know, and there's obviously some things that should be hidden. There's qualifiers to all these things, right? There's some things that for national security purposes, all kinds of shit, right? But there's also a whole slew of things that shouldn't be hidden under those guys, right? And that's why we are supporters of Edward Snowden and other whistleblowers that are leaking things and showing things, exposing things that people, citizens of the United States, do deserve to see that are being hidden for no legitimate reason, right? But it's sincerely concerning to me that there's anyone that is following under this step of like, well, we need to break up these companies because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't even want to fact check ads. They don't even want to fact check political ads, right? I don't. And so even outside of personal responsibility of consumption, right? I still think that the personal responsibility lies with the people placing the ads. Why are we not requesting those people don't lie in their ads? Yeah. Not that Facebook tells us what the lies are. Maybe we should request that you're not allowed to fucking lie in an ad. You're not allowed to lie in a political ad. If anyone is able to call up and place a legitimate claim on a lie in your political ad, it's taken down. It's taken down, and your campaign is fined because you fucking lied.
Let's make it a campaign finance violation.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand why that is not what we're looking at. We're talking about Facebook is a piece of shit. Mark Zuckerberg is a piece of shit because he doesn't want to fact check politicians. Not that they shouldn't be allowed to lie in the first place. Like, what the fuck? I'm sorry. I feel bad but I don't.
Every time you go into a courtroom, you have to swear on a Bible, right? Or I don't know if maybe but you have to swear in some fashion to swear you will tell the truth.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Why can't we hold the legislature and the executive branch to that same standard?
Yeah, it's Mark Zuckerberg.
Why can't we do that?
It's not their responsibility not to lie to try and make themselves look better or try and slander their political opponent.
Yeah.
It's Mark Zuckerberg's job to tell us when they're doing that so that we don't have to do it ourselves and they don't have to worry about it. They can just say whatever the fuck they want because Mark Zuckerberg will clean it up in the end. And if they don't, we'll find his ass for it and we'll try and break up his company. You know? That thinking to me is extremely backwards. I don't understand where that comes from.
I know where it does.
That people are always talking about, politicians are always fucking lying, you know, but we don't want to hold them accountable. We're being presented with the opportunity right now to hold them accountable, and instead we're shitting on Mark Zuckerberg because we want to post memes of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing this. Oh, Italian mama, bring your son for dinner, or fucking shit like this. When in reality, we should be asking why we want to let people like her lie in political ads. Why? Why is that acceptable? I know that doesn't make sense to me.
I have a theory about why.
Let's hear it.
Help explain it.
What do you got?
I think this is I always say this is a societal problem. This is a societal problem. Well, yeah, this is a societal problem because one way or the other, like, I don't care how you phrase it, which qualifier you want to use, which word you want to say, but we are a society now of mushy, soft, pink little, squishy, manipulable clay pieces. I don't know. We don't have any backbone anymore. We've never had to struggle for anything. And it all goes back to the greatest generation and the boomers.
Yeah.
And I think
so it's our grandparents' fault. I should blame my grandma?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But the problem is getting to the bottom of where it stemmed from.
Yeah.
That's not the road to equity, if you will. This is just trying to understand what we might be dealing with here and why we might be dealing with it so we can solve the problems we have now and do better later.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down essentially the pampering of multiple generations that never had to deal with true, utter conflict, life or death that we had. The last one we had was in World War II. That greatest generation.
People aren't dying in starvation in mass like we were before World War II.
People aren't dying by the hundreds and thousands in wars and, millions in wars. All this, that's not happening anymore. It hasn't happened for a long time.
Right.
Vietnam was bad, but it wasn't quite to the level of, a worldwide conflict. And that all over the world breeds these other generations. And naturally, as human beings, we want our next generation to have it a little easier than we did because we had it tough. They had it tough. They had it tough. Because life is a struggle. It's always hard to get where you're at. And so you want your kids to not have to struggle as much as you did because it fucking sucks. But you have generations that do that and then keep that same mentality, even though they never actually struggled with something existential.
Yeah.
Truly. And then it builds and expounds, exponentially grows, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. Until we have like the utter snowflake generation. That's the whole thing where it came from. We're just soft little squishy little fucking complainy pantses. Because we've never had to fend off,
Our parents wanted too good for us.
Yeah. I mean, the term helicopter parenting and all that stuff stemmed from our generation a little bit before that, that whole Gen X to us, it got pretty out of control.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to.
I think that kind of trails back to what we might have a problem with here. And so we just need to know now, knowing that our abundance of problems is probably caused by a lack of problems. We need to go find these inner struggles and things that we have to battle and hard things in life and get that mentality of struggle again put back into our system, and everybody will do better. Everything is so easy now. And
I don't want to come off too conservative here, right? Because I feel like this happens to me more. Is
that a conservative point of view?
No. This is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Is that it seems to me, right, the same people that are supporting Elizabeth Warren, right, the same people that are supporting like a democratic socialist type of lifestyle going forward in the country, right, are the same people, because Elizabeth Warren is partially running on a platform of breaking up Facebook, right?
Yes.
These are the ones that are willing
and lies
that are willing to cede this freedom of speech, a freedom of consumption of information to the government, right? Like, it's the acceptance of like a more socialistic ideology that's like, well, if the government's got to, comb through it first to decide what I can see, then that's fine, as long as, they're telling me what all the lies are and stuff in the back end. But I know that's a fucking slippery slope road to deciding what you get to see, who's deciding what you get to see. And I don't know.
It's the U.S. government in our, situation now is the ultimate helicopter parent. And there are a lot of people out there, I think, that don't want to not have that safety net of being able to go to mommy and daddy and ask for help. It's like, we shouldn't have to worry about this, guys.
And
we're fucking good enough. We shouldn't have to worry about it. Let's make it their problem. But you need that. You still need that. I keep knocking the table and making the dog bark.
Well, for once, instead of saying I have a plan for that, Mark Zuckerberg is saying that shouldn't be what I'm doing. Like, I shouldn't be doing that. You know, I'm telling you now, I'm not the guy for that job. That shouldn't be my responsibility. We shouldn't be doing that, deciding what you get to see. You know, like that's not up to us. Like and it shouldn't be up to us.
We just built the place
and
for you all to hang out.
That's like the most amazing personal freedom argument I've heard in such a long time, and it's being turned as an attack on personal freedom, and I don't understand it. Like it's so pro personal freedom that he's like, no. I want you to see everything. I want you to see absolutely everything. We're going to fucking put it all out there so you can see it all. They're like, you are attacking liberty of America. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, I'm trying to open up free elections. Like, what are you talking about? I want you to have information. And it's so weird. He even said when he was there, he's like, I know that I'm not the best like spokesman for this, you know, I'm not maybe the best person to be here right now talking about this, but like this is not me. Like this should not be me, you know? And
you know, the big thing about this that really gets me going, and it's exciting to see people like Mark Zuckerberg all of a sudden now be like this outwardly spoken like champion of free speech in a fashion. You know, at least from the government. Barack Obama doing that thing the other day with his little video clip talking to all the woke scolds that y'all need to just get over it. Like that is really, really, it gives me hope. Yeah. That like, this is something that like, there's enough attacks on our God-given rights, if you will. There's enough attacks on those from the federal government that it's bringing a lot of people that you kind of used to be like politically opposed to, and all their policies and all this, but like we're all rallying around like the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Second Amendment, like all these different things. Like when it starts to get too crazy, when Beto's talking about taking your guns,
literally taking your shit.
Wait, who? Bye, Beto. Thank you. That's about all the time you deserve on the podcast.
Thank God, right? Let's high five on that.
Not running for president anymore.
Peace.
Bill de Blasio, he out. Oh, yeah. They're starting to weed out.
Slowly weed them out.
But, you know, when you look at it on that perspective, it's really, and it's nice to see people like Mark Zuckerberg. It's nice to be like, wow, Zuck, I actually found something I can get behind you on. How you take that freedom and implement it on your own platform, you know, that's you. I don't like it. That's fine, but you can have your own little fucking rules. Right. But we can't get the government involved here, and I'm glad we're on the same page. And it's a weird time. Yeah. It is weird, but I'm glad there's people going, there's grown-ups in the room going, no. I don't want mommy and daddy. I got this.
Yeah. They were also coming after him for like the supposed lack of diversity in the
I'm trying to rig, bitch.
In the leadership of Facebook, like in the executives of Facebook, you know. And I have a hard time and I've not looked up this data, you know, but I have a hard time discussing diversity in employment, right? When I don't know what the makeup is of the population surrounding that particular job, right? Yeah, because unless
it's a popular conversation,
because it seems to me that in a standard world, right, the population of the people working at any given facility would be at least semi-representative of the population of the people working around that facility, right?
But in a minority sense or a majority sense? I think that's an important question to ask.
What do you mean?
Think about the way our city works. Seattle, the big city.
Yeah.
How many people from our county or Pierce County or the surrounding counties work in Seattle compared to how many people in Seattle work in Seattle?
Those places, yeah.
You know what I mean? I would like to know that number because it's something I recently started to think about.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it makes sense, a business and the community, but we have outward forces that work on this too. And that's the people that make the hour plus commutes every day to get into town to work that specific job.
So that's why I'm saying semi-representative, right? I don't by any means expect it for that reason to be an exact representation of the community around it, right? There's one building in Kingston and there's 60% black people in Kingston, 30% white people, 20% natives. I don't expect that to be the makeup of the workforce at that job, right? But it would be at least semi-representative of that, because if there's a shitload of black people working around there, there's probably a bunch of black people working here. You know what I'm saying? And if there's this discussion of lack of diversity all the time, right? In all these positions and all these jobs and stuff like that. And I don't think that that's necessarily inherently a sign of lack of diversity if there's not an equally diverse population of minorities working at a facility, right? Especially if it's not representative of the population living around it, right?
You know what's sad is I think those numbers would probably be relatively easy to get.
It's got to be pretty simple,
sit there
right?
And be like, okay, how many people that work at this company live here? And how many of you guys don't live here?
And what I mean by that is, just for example, not that this is like super common, but if there's a town that has 90% white people in it and only 10% mixed minorities, it's not inherently racist for there to only be 1 or 2 black people or minorities working at any given place of employment, because there's mostly white people living in this town, right? And to go there and say, there's 10 people working here and not 1 black person, that's fucking racist. It would be kind of a ludicrous claim, it would be a little bit ridiculous. But if there's a even 50-50 split and at 90% of the jobs in this town, there's only white people working there, we might have a discussion that there's some weird lack of diversity going on here in these jobs, right? Something's going on, that there's no black people working here, but at least half this fucking town is black people, right? But if that's not the case, if there's not this huge skew in the workforce and the people living around it, then I have a really hard time discussing that as even like a serious claim, you know? And
so, okay.
And that doesn't seem to be the claim at Facebook. That's like, you have all these minorities living around here and there's no minorities on the executive board, Not that people don't come around from the country to work for different companies, especially in executive positions, but I don't understand what the claim is here. Like, you guys are racist because there isn't enough minorities working at your company. And that doesn't wash for me. Like, that's not enough evidence for me to say that Mark Zuckerberg is racist just because there's not enough minorities in leadership at the company. Like, I don't understand that argument, And
dude, so especially when Facebook is a global.
That's what I'm saying.
Company.
Like, and there's not even a population argument that it's at the basis of this. They're just saying this just as a claim, that's not very diverse of you, and that's really backwards. They're in fucking Silicon Valley. Like, what are you talking about? They're in the middle of California. We're seriously questioning? Facebook has like 70 different gender options available on Facebook that you can choose. And we're talking about them being biased on people's, I truly don't understand.
It just shows you how desperate the government is to get their hands on this stuff.
And so then they're using this settlement they had with HUD earlier this year, right? Housing and Urban Development, where companies were taking ads out for rental properties and stuff like that. And they were being targeted to people based on their age and their zip code. And, it was found in this settlement that was discriminatory because rental, like housing and jobs and stuff like that, credit, are things that are protected under equal opportunities, right? And so certain zip codes, can be representative of people based on their income and stuff like that. And so it could be inherently discriminatory to be advertising to people based on their zip code, because it could be going after them based on their income, right? And going after people for their age is discriminatory and all this stuff, right? And so it turns out that it is discriminatory on Facebook's part to allow these companies to have taken out these ads on Facebook, right? Not that these companies did it in the first place, but it's fucked up that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook should have known that this was discriminatory and should never have allowed it to happen in the first place. But these companies shouldn't have known that they were paying for discriminatory ads, right? They can do what they want. Facebook just needs to be in check of that, right? Which again, I didn't understand, because as two people who have paid for ads on Facebook, right? We know that there is one standard form that every company fills out if they're trying to place an ad on Facebook, and there's like 200 some fucking options, things that you can pick to tailor your ad to people, right? Mm-hmm. And so up until this settlement happened, now if you're going to do something that is based on equal opportunities or surrounds that, there's a limited number of things that you can use to tailor an ad towards people, right? Yep. But it used to be just the same form that everyone else filled out, right? So again, Mark Zuckerberg's argument, he's like, well, hold on. Like, everyone used the same ad form. Like, we didn't allow people to advertise based on race because we don't collect race information. So that's not even something we can help you target an ad, right? We can't help you do that because we don't collect that information. So we're just allowing people to place ads, right? But again, like, they're making it his fault that they allowed this to even be a thing. And again, I don't understand, where is the responsibility on the companies, the individuals who placed the ads that were found to be discriminatory? It's not their fault. It's Mark Zuckerberg's fault that there was an option ever available that they could place those ads. I got a hard time believing that Mark Zuckerberg's the one that wrote the code for the fucking ad form on Facebook. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he did. But I don't think so.
I highly doubt
chances are he wasn't. So,
are you kidding me? He has worked himself out of his own job.
Dude.
Like, he did it like a decade ago, man. Like, it was a long time. He hasn't been writing code for a long time, probably.
Like 3 years ago, he was like, he
probably hates that. He's probably like, God, I hate running this fucking company. I just want to go back to doing my coding. And
like 3 years ago, he's like, I'm only going to eat meat that I hunt. And so fucking half the year he spent hunting anyway because he's got to get meat all the time. You know what I'm saying? So...
What is he must have read JBP or something.
Zuckerberg's doing weird shit. Yes. He's doing some weird shit. So,
oh man.
But either way,
I did have one anecdote about what you were talking about earlier with the targeted ads, right?
Yes.
I had a personal experience with that recently. And I won't go into too much detail, but like I will say there is a massive economic opportunity out there in these companies that will take your business and their information and you pay them and they will run these ultra targeted ad campaigns for you based off of like location and like this really, really fucked up industry that I despise, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you walk into a Best Buy store, if you open you open Google or whatever, you're going to get an ad for Best Buy.
Right.
That's the type of thing that it would
it's
be.
Horrible.
And it's like, if you're a local business around an area and you're like, oh yeah, you want to hit the fucking Starbucks people up? We'll hit them up with your ads.
If you just search something on Google and then you start to see ads for that.
I was really happy because he wasn't directly talking to me. He was talking to somebody else in the room. And because I was getting furious because I despise that concept even exists. I fucking hate the advertisement industry.
Yeah.
And that particularly is something I wanted to be like, get the fuck out of this room. I don't want to hear this. This is terrible. This is not what you're supposed to be doing with your life.
Yeah. So,
but it exists and it's.
You ran into someone who said they were doing that, or?
Yeah, literally directly approached.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Like for your job?
Yeah.
Weird.
And I was like, no, get the fuck. I was so glad I wasn't talking to them because I despise that entire concept.
That's really
But
weird.
like, there's no speculation out there that there is now a private interest in that still being a thing.
Yeah.
Targeted advertisements. And why is that Zuck's fault though? He didn't ask for that that's a totally separate industry that works within his system. Why should he be responsible for that? You know, it doesn't make sense. It's like we were talking about earlier. He built us the arena and we're just all in the arena. He just wanted to build it and made sure there were some basic ground rules.
The diversity questions were furthered. I wish I wrote down the representative that asked it, but someone said, well, there's, X% of black people in America, but only X% of black people on Facebook. How do you answer for that? And he said, well, I said earlier, we don't collect race data, so I couldn't even have told you prior to you saying this, how many black people were on Facebook. Like, I could not have delivered you that information because we don't collect it. We don't ask people what fucking color they are when they sign up for Facebook because we don't give a shit and it's racist to fucking do that. Like, it's like, we don't do that. So I don't know.
It's like, I don't know, government. I'm not doing it because it's racist. Why do you want to do it?
I also don't make people sign up for Facebook. If they don't want to be on Facebook, I'm not going to make them be on Facebook. Like, what kind of question is that? Well, how do you answer for why there's only this many people on there?
But you need to pay attention to those questions because that indicates what they want this thing to be.
Right.
If you give them the reins, and it's really obvious. It's disgusting and pandering and all this bullshit what they do now. But it's very important that they do that because they are painting you a picture of the landscape that they want to build, this dystopian fucking government run universe.
Backwards.
That's why they ask those questions. And that should terrify everybody.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. They're trying to get votes. They're trying to grandstand. And like, this is what they're trying to do with your life.
It's that type of quota mentality, that like leaks into, like we were talking about affirmative action and like the new referendum on affirmative action in Washington, on I-1000, that they are trying to reinstate affirmative action in Washington state, and you have discussed before that you knew a dude who was a fucking recruiter, that's having to literally turn people down based on their race because they need more minorities in there to meet the fucking quotas.
Yep.
And when it's being discussed here, right? Because on The Overcast, that local podcast that we listen to, they had a dude on 1 week who was against affirmative action and a woman on the next week who was in favor of it. Mm-hmm. And they were asking her, well, what do you make of the quotas argument, right? And she said, oh, well, they're not quotas, they're goals, right? They're not quotas that we're setting out. They're just goals that we have out here. And there's, quarterly meetings or whatever to, of all these companies to make sure that they're meeting these goals that we have. They're like, but it's not a quota. Like, no, it's a goal.
It's a goal.
And I don't, that's semantics. That's bullshit. Like
that's
that
intent.
Argument.
They want to choose.
Nonsense.
This is called virtue signaling.
That is
my
nonsense.
intent is to do this because I'm using this particular language to make it not seem like a bad idea. I'm trying to be nice about it. This is well intentioned.
It's a goal. We would love to meet these standards.
But when your quota essentially is you need 15% of an Asian makeup in this particular job, but the vast majority of the surrounding area is like 60% Asian. Now you open the door to reverse discrimination, which is why discrimination on a governmental level like that, I think is personally, I think it is racist because it's literally not an equal opportunity anymore.
Right.
You're just assuming bad intentions. If people,
it's backwards.
It's backwards. But that's not to say there aren't a bunch of shitty people out there.
No,
that do shitty things and that are racist as fuck and whatever. I mean,
but that's the same type of argument that's being made towards Facebook and being made towards Mark Zuckerberg. It's that you and your company are not meeting these expectations that we have of diversity and of equity. And because of that, you're a racist. And I don't understand how fucking Jewish ass, weird ass, robot ass Mark Zuckerberg is out here being called a fucking racist because he allowed people to take ads on Facebook and is now like, I don't want to tell you what you have to pay attention to and what you don't have to pay attention to because I don't think that's my job to police, your First Amendment rights on Facebook because my whole deal with this was to make a platform for fairness. Mm-hmm. So check this, right after this was on, I was listening to, God, I wish I could remember which podcast it was. I think it was Start Here. And they were talking about this and they were talking about Mark Zuckerberg said that his intent with Facebook was to be a platform for the First Amendment, to let people do what they want. As long as it doesn't, break these rules, you can't, fire in a crowded room, all this shit, right?
Which is
so,
just as a quick aside, it was meant to be a fucking hot or not site.
It's okay, so that's
it has grown,
but that's
into
what I
this.
have beef with, right? Is that I think that is a disingenuous argument.
It is.
Towards Facebook, right?
And because I have heard that
because
lately, and I think
Facebook
it's
itself was not intended. You know what I'm as it is now.
Yeah,
it was.
This is not Facebook.
No, and it wasn't
new. This is. Facebook was born. And then it had a little adolescence, and then it became an adult. And this is what it
immediately
became.
shifted. Like that website,
Totally
as
different.
it first started, was shut down and then couldn't happen anymore, right?
Yep.
So you can't even argue fairly that website is even a little bit indicative of the Facebook that Mark Zuckerberg started when he started the Facebook. You know what I'm saying?
No validity, but highly interesting.
Funny. But I think it's bullshit, and I think
it doesn't speak to anything.
It's a fucking
it's
nonsense.
Non-contextual.
It's a nonsense backstabbing undercut argument at Mark Zuckerberg to try and invalidate him trying to step back out of the arena, being like, I don't want anything to do with this. You know, you all came at me twisted after 2016 about how I fucking let people do this and whatever. I'm not going to take any foreign money anymore. I'm not going to tell anyone what they can and can't see. I'm just going to put it all out there and let them do what they want. And for some reason, it's still his fucking fault. And I don't get it. Like, I don't get how there isn't one person up there who's like, everyone shut the fuck up, because he's doing what we should be doing right now, which is saying, this is none of your business. Step the fuck back. Take American money, keep the foreign shit out of it, and do your job. That's what he wants to do. He's like, I don't want it, you know?
Yep.
And I don't understand why there's not one person who's saying, good on you, man.
Because we have a class system in America now. We have a political class of society that lives and works in this bubble. There are career politicians throughout that whole thing. Mind you, not every politician is one of them, but they have a vested interest in just doing what they want and making the country run the way they want to do, or perhaps the way they want their single section, their single voting block, their segment of the population. They want the world to work the way they work, or they want things to work.
Yeah.
And that's why they can get up there and grandstand and ask these ridiculous questions, and where most people should be like, why the fuck is that a question? Why are you asking that? Because that's what we have to deal with every time we listen to these testimonies. It's this political grandstanding. They have no connection to what we as a society actually do,
right?
Live and work, and nobody understands all this stuff. And then that gives them the opportunity to ask those stupid kind of questions.
It seemed like an utter waste of time, right? And especially because, like you said, the intent of him going there was to talk about this digital currency. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why he was supposed to be there.
Which is something that is important and we should all be talking about.
Right.
This is going to happen. It's going to happen. It's grown exponentially. There is a portion of our own U.S. economy involved in that. We need to understand what this is going to look like. We need to talk about this. We need to find out what's going on. And if Facebook's, which has a massive social impact, if they're going to do this, what is that going to look like for the rest of the country? We need to know this. We need to have this conversation, but we can't, because unlike Jack Dorsey and Twitter, who has now banned paid political ads on their platform, Facebook is not doing that. So now Facebook's in trouble.
I also don't hate this idea either, right? What Jack Dorsey's doing of no political ads, because personally, I'm getting tired of seeing this shit, right? See it all the time.
And
so
everybody's own private account will still be doing that enough.
Right.
It's like, I follow Tulsi Gabbard, not the campaign of Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I just want her.
And so I'm not,
in a lot of ways,
I'm not personally opposed maybe not that. I don't hate this idea either, right? It's fine. I think that it's certainly another valid approach to dealing with lies and corruption and just bullshit and paid political ads, that like, we're not going to allow you to pay us and be involved in your lies.
And that's just a market decision. And I have no problem with that.
And I think that it's reflective of the decisions that Twitter has made in the past and people they've choose to ban and stuff like that. And
yeah, it's very Twitter to do that. It is.
I am much more in favor of what Mark Zuckerberg has chosen to do, and I really hope that they stick with it, because I think this is the right way to go, and I think that I hope that one day people will see that this was the right thing to do, and that they see that they needed someone to hold them responsible for the information that they were consuming, because I think that that's really important, and I think that that's reflective that the fact that we're here today, that's important, right? Mm-hmm. That we both hold that very important, that you guys as an audience, as America, should be paying attention to what you're listening to and making sure that it's true and not just consuming it and then spitting it back out of your mouth without knowing whether or not it's actually legitimate, right? Mm-hmm. I think that that's, again, why we're here, why we're doing our best to check different sources, to listen to different people, to make sure that
objectively, that's the goal, man.
And that's what Mark Zuckerberg seems to be trying to force people to do, now. And I don't
in this space,
and I think that again, that's fine.
None of this stuff that it's because it's so interesting. None of the stuff that he's talking about and the values he's like reflecting in his congressional hearings. You don't, he's not necessarily doing that on his platform.
It's a stark turn from what he used to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, the reason Twitter, there's no problem about Twitter doing what they just did.
Yeah.
Is because Twitter is much more related to the personality and person that Jack Dorsey is compared to Facebook, which is just this unstoppable monster that is no longer Mark Zuckerberg. He doesn't, he may run the business aspect of it, or the company aspect of it, or something like that now, but he's not in control of the machine anymore necessarily. It's executive boards and all this different stuff. Whereas Jack Dorsey, his platform is much more reflective of him.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case with the Zuck.
No, he seems to be, reining it in a little bit more, especially with this decision. But I think that you're correct. It's an enormous being that is, I think, largely out of his control,
So I wanted to ask you this because you said something just a minute ago about how, it's not, you're interested to see how this is going to go. And like later in history, we're going to look back and say, hey, this was better that we let this stuff just keep rolling. It's better just the free speech absolutist argument, essentially. Just let it roll, As long as we're not trying to kill anybody, we're not doing anything blatantly illegal. Let's just let it roll, and the chips are going to fall where they will. Do you foresee the possibility of that simple kind of a open road, just to give everybody free reign? Do you think there's a possibility in the future that will create a conflict in some way that will alter the way the generation thinks? Whatever generation that is, will it culminate into a tipping point where people realize that, like, yeah, you can say whatever you want, but just like, free speech intends, like, you still need to, like, just not be an asshole about it. You need to think about what you say.
I think that as long as people continue to not think about what they say and just be flippant about shit, especially...
Because I don't see it changing right now. It's still constant.
One thing of value I actually took from MSNBC this morning when I was watching it. And this is real, right? Not the way that they delivered it, because they're real pieces of shit, just kind of as a whole. But they were talking about...
when I thought there was a compliment in there.
Well, there's a little bit, right? Because it was valuable information, I think. They played a clip of Louis Gohmert, Representative Louis Gohmert. Oh my God.
She's sleeping.
Cute. On the floor of the House, talking about how if, this behavior from the Democrats continued, then there would be some type of civil war, and the last thing that he would ever want would be to be part of a civil war. And but he couldn't remember, said that guns were only the last phase of a civil war. And then Steve King came out earlier this week and said something about the South having like 8 trillion fucking bullets or something like that.
And you think it's so Steve King? What are you trying to be, the next fucking president of the Confederacy, bro?
So MSNBC,
nobody should be listening to anything that comes out of his mouth.
MSNBC talked about that, and then they're like, and then these El Paso shootings happened, and this dude talked about, President Trump, and he killed all these people based on their race. And then this person left a voicemail for this other representative that was really threatening and said, Trump 2020. And it's, all this rhetoric. And so the way that they spun it was totally bullshit.
It's so stupid.
But the part I think is valuable is that it does not help anyone for Louis Gohmert to be talking about, the last thing I wanted to see is a civil war. But if y'all keep fucking around like this, then that's exactly what's going to happen. That doesn't help anybody. Like, that's not helping anyone, especially in a world,
stirring the pot, bro,
where the other side is attributing language like that to mass shootings and murders. That's not helping anybody
and before that, it was Hitler and Nazi and white supremacists. Like none of
that's not helping anyone.
It's not good.
In a world where people are terrified of mass shootings, especially based on race and stuff like that, because of the way that media is spinning things and the way that politicians are spinning things, Steve King talking about how much ammunition lies in red states is not helping anyone. That's not helping the discussion at all. You know what I'm saying? When fucking Beto O'Rourke is getting support and talking about taking people's guns away, it does not help the conversation at all for you to be talking about how much ammunition is lying in people's homes just fucking waiting to be used. It doesn't help anybody, right? And I'm not attributing this language to mass shootings and violence. I'm not saying that these two things are connected. We've said very explicitly in the past that they're not connected, right?
No.
But it certainly doesn't fucking help, right? For you to be talking about civil war, talking about guns, talking about fucking gunfights and shit between two different political factions, that doesn't fucking help. That does not help anyone at all, ever. It's not making anything better. So why are you wasting the time to go onto the floor and posture like you're some fucking animal, like you're ready to throw down, bring your AR in here and shoot somebody that you don't agree with? Like, Why are you doing that? Why? Because it's not helping. It's only making things worse. It is giving more fodder. If nothing else, it's giving fodder to the other side to make stupid shit like this for people to watch at 7:00 a.m. on a Saturday when they're up fucking doing whatever, being like, God, Trump's a piece of shit. Look at all these Republicans. They're just waiting to murder us. They're waiting to kill me with their ARs. And Beto's gone. He's not even going to get me here to take them. Like, that's all you're doing. That's all that you're doing. It's not helping anyone,
It's the old, when you're a politician, you are a public figure, right? And you have public performances. Every time you get out and do anything in your official capacity, that is a public performance. Read the room. Your room is the nation. Read the fucking room, people. Learn. Take a look what's going on. You really want to get out there, fire and brimstone?
Right.
No. Let's talk about like togetherness and unity and some real Barney shit. Let's get in there.
It's just not a good look,
But you're stirring the pot. It's not helping.
Yeah.
And it does hold. There's rhetoric is weird because obviously free speech. You say what you want. You're not calling for violence, whatever it is.
Right.
But there's unproductive fucking shit to say. And how you say things can be very, non-helpful.
Right. So
you're not helping.
We meet every other week to exercise our free speech and put it on the internet, right? Because we think that there are some things that can be valuable to other people. The way that we've chosen to live our lives, and I can speak personally, right, is we walk this line in our personal lives of wanting to share information that people will hopefully find effective, and also not getting into conversations that will not have a positive outcome, right? Yeah. And that's a really hard line to walk sometimes, between not censoring yourself, you know what I'm saying, but still not involving yourself in a situation that won't benefit you in the long run.
Yeah. And read the room. It's hard.
Right. And I think that that's like a really valuable skill. And I think that that's something that politicians are supposed to have.
But it doesn't win elections.
And there's this new
That's the problem.
acceptance in people like Donald Trump and Louis Gohmert and fucking Schumer, and Maxine Waters and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, people who are willing to say things that are so exaggerated and and don't add value to progress the conversation in a positive manner, and I don't. It's not helpful. It's not helpful for anyone to be happy that that's what their politicians are doing, because all that does is add to this gridlock that we find and allow Trump to say, oh, the do nothing Democrats, and all this shit, even though the Senate is still run by Republicans and there's still Republicans in the White House. There's for still the do nothing Democrats. But either, and then I'm not saying that just to take shots at him, but I'm saying it all it does is allow people to make illegitimate arguments because you're doing things like that, It's strange. So the longer that politicians especially continue to make statements that have no founding in truth and don't care about the outcome, the longer this is going to continue to happen, and all of this ties, I think, back to personal responsibility. That in the end, they're like, oh, that's not what I meant. That's not really what I meant. I didn't literally mean a civil war when I was on the floor talking about guns and shit. Like, I was just saying shit because it's just so ludicrous. I was speaking in hyperbole because it's just so crazy that this is happening. And the longer that continues to happen, the longer that people are saying it was literally the worst thing that's ever happened to anybody ever. Like, I know but it's not, right? And people, they're like, oh, well, it's just a word. Like, it's just, I'm just speaking in hyperbole. I'm like, that's fine, but it's a bastardization of the English language that you're just fucking it all over the place because you're like, oh, well, I'm really trying to be, I want to really evoke as much emotion as possible in my language that I, as Donald Trump, can say that China is raping America in our economy. They're raping America because our president has literally said that, not figuratively, literally said that in the actual words that China is raping America.
But you can't say lynching.
So what, right? So I don't, you know what I'm saying? A world where the exaggerated language is accepted because we want to, publicly express how serious this is. That we're going to take the most traumatic thing somebody could possibly ever go through in their lives and apply it to a combating economy.
Oh, I spilled my beer. My beer raped me. It's like, Jesus, dude, no.
It's dark.
Okay, you got to. That only belongs up in this situation.
And there's a difference. Just to be clear, there's a difference. Not that it's that much better. There's a difference between a 14-year-old playing Call of Duty and saying that guy fucking raped me in this last match, and the president saying China is raping America.
There's a fundamental difference. One is a public figure.
Difference,
And one is a public figure and one's a kid talking shit.
Right. Not that it's good, but hopefully by the time that 14-year-old is 18, 19, 20 years old, he'll know that he shouldn't say, this person raped me on the internet. You know what I'm saying?
You're not allowed to have that thought.
I said that shit because that people started saying that when I was a teenager. I don't fucking say that now, There's a certain point where you learn that that's not acceptable, but when you allow the other adults who are supposed to be more adult in the room, when you allow them to use language like that, it becomes acceptable all over again, and you have kids. This has become a very broad conversation.
I love it though.
You have kids that are getting, we're at a point where you have to arrest kids because they're saying shit on the internet about fucking wanting to shoot people up and stuff, and then their parents are like, but he would never say, he didn't even mean that. And it's like, but here we are. Here we fucking are, where these kids think that it's okay to say shit like this because they're seeing politicians talking about countries raping other countries. So he thinks that it's okay to talk about, you know what I'm saying?
Well, a lot of communication happens behind the veil of anonymity that is the internet. Parents can't, you can't talk like that with your friends playing out the house because your fucking parents are home. So you don't do that. There's no authority figure to tell you, no, that's fucked up to say, you little bastard. Shut up.
But on Xbox Live, you can say whatever you want.
Exactly. And that's a societal problem, not a governmental legal problem, whatever like that. But that's just, we live in a very strange new world and we don't know how to live in it yet.
It's weird, man.
It's fucking weird.
It happened too fast.
It's going to continue to be faster.
Yeah.
We're going to need to adapt quicker, which is terrifying because our governmental system is built to be slow as fuck. So I had a random thought.
All right, let's hear it.
High thought. To avoid the problem of the celebrity presidential race.
Okay.
No more voting for president as a public body. We vote for our representatives who, as a party, elect the president. Because isn't that really what it is? Anyways, the party, through the nomination process and everybody's running campaigns, the party picks who they fucking want to win, who want to be the nominee, right? The primary process and all this stuff, it's kind of weird, but like the party ultimately endorses their candidate.
Like a super electoral college.
It's why Bernie Sanders got fucked in 2016.
Yeah.
Because that was happening. That is not a thing that's not a conspiracy theory or anything. That did happen.
And in this case, you would have to somehow make the districts not politically gerrymandered, right?
Gerrymandering happens on the state level, so it would have to stay.
So you're just going to let it.
I've had the gerrymander conversation so many times. I still don't know what to make of it, so I just fall back on it's a state problem.
It's hard. It's a hard discussion to have.
The local motherfuckers take care of this shit. We need to get a hammer on them. We don't need to fix it at the top level. That's our problem. Our problem.
Yeah.
We don't want to lose our statehood essentially by giving our say in who we elect to the federal level. We don't want to do that. We want to keep the state sovereign. Otherwise, what the fuck are we doing here? Then we just need to start having prime ministers and become a parliamentarian system. But, would it be that worse? To like essentially not give a fuck who the president is and just hope and all this stuff and then just make your state rep elections like bigger, your Senate elections more popular. All this stuff is much more intriguing to everybody. Whereas most people don't know who their two fucking senators are half the time. They just know who the president is.
I don't know. I would have to think about that.
Yeah, think about it.
I would have to. Yeah,
I just thought about that because I have those Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton corkscrew and nutcracker over there.
Yeah.
I'll let you do the math on who's who because you can't see it on camera. But I look at that and I was like, yeah, man. What if we didn't care who the fuck those people were? I mean, we kind of knew, but it's essentially you're voting for the party. Which I don't like that now that I say that.
Well, I don't know.
Anyways, we need to talk about impeachment.
Yes, but before we do that, I want to take a break real quick, and then we'll come back and we will talk about...
I was having the internal struggle of whether we should take a break, I should pitch for a break, or just ride it.
Yeah, no, we're going to do it. We're going to take a break real quick. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about some impeachment inquiry, some Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
Yeah.
Because fuck ISIS. And then we are going to talk about some Richard Epstein, probably a little bit of sports, and then we're going to get the fuck
Yeah, because I need to know. I don't know anything about this Epstein thing. You got to fill me in real quick.
Okay, then we'll definitely talk about Epstein.
Word.
We'll be right back. To the streets.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan. Cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And we're back. So we were just talking about this event going on at Silver. I got some personal stuff going on Silver City, but I discovered yesterday because we went over to shout out John and Olivia, who were over at their place last night, hanging out and having some in-depth, awesome conversations, which people don't do very often anymore, which is terrible because it needs to happen more. And Carolina had bought like a thing of cider and a thing of hard seltzer. And I had never seen this hard seltzer before. And I looked at it because I'm not a hard seltzer guy because all the sugar and stuff that most are in most of them. So I'm looking at this thing. Silver City Brewing.
Oh.
Judgment. I passed judgment. I was like, oh, you're trying to get the basic white bitch White Claw people going on. Ain't no laws when you're drinking claws. Bro, if that's your catchphrase, don't drink it. That's a bad idea. It's like Four Loko.
So how was it?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a fan.
No?
No.
What flavor was it?
It was passion fruit, I think. But the girls really liked them. So they must be good hard seltzer if that's what your rodeo is. But I was, dude, I was like so offended.
You didn't love it though.
That's no, definitely not. But I was so offended that Silver City was
they
what?
Got to get on the game.
You're making.
Man.
I mean, it's a business decision, I guess.
At
we do have a basic white bitch culture.
At the WAB, they have like a seltzer handle that they put different fruit and shit in.
Now, see that as long as it's not sweet, I'm down with that. Because I love regular seltzer, like like flavored, non-sweetened, just carbonated water, like lemon flavored carbonated water, whatever. You know?
Yeah, and this is just like a setup that they have there that they stuff fruit in this fucking pipe thing, and then they run the seltzer through it.
See, that's dope. I like that idea.
Yeah, that's what they do.
So that's dope. But yeah, I was highly upset about that. So, anyways, now that we're pissed off about Silver City, can we be pissed off about impeachment, or are we happy about impeachment?
That's a hard question. Colin.
Mixed feelings, right? It's not an easy one to
I
go
certainly, as we've said in the past, I think that the inquiry is the right way to go. I'm at a strange place because I just kind of really considered the option for the first time this week that the president might be impeached in the House, but not acquitted but not condemned but acquitted in the Senate. And so therefore not removed. Mm-hmm. In which case I'm like, what's the fucking point? Right. If that's going to be the outcome, then I don't really see the point of like,
it's a bad idea.
This whole jam, you know what I'm saying?
I just Nancy, you a good politician. You have been for the most part.
Yeah.
Throughout your whole career. I hope you know something I don't.
Other than to try and ensure that he won't win the 2020 election by airing something so egregious that no one could vote for him.
That's what makes me think that she's got something.
But in
that's
that
convince
case,
Mitch.
In that case, you have got to have a candidate that is legitimate enough that people will actually vote for them. You know, because even if you have shown this questionable shit, if it's not so crazy that a Republican will vote for a moderate Democrat, then you're fucked. You have to have somebody that a Republican can stomach voting for, or else it's not going to work.
Yeah, I saw this fucking meme the other day. I was trying to find it last night, and I couldn't. But it was like, it's a reaction of somebody that was going, the moment you realize...
Larry David.
It was Larry David.
Yeah.
From Curb Your
Enthusiasm. Yeah.
It's him like just... It's like, it's the old, voting for president is like picking which pile of shit smells least, smells better. And like that is, but we have a new form of that now. There's a new level. It's like, do you want to commit to like $57 trillion a year in running that kind of a deficit for universal health care? Or do you vote for Trump again?
Yeah.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate to already be faced with this type of decision, right? So as far as the actual impeachment inquiry, over the last 2 weeks since we've been here, there has been a whole slew of people that have come and testified.
A lot of them, the text message people.
Yeah. And so a lot of people, let me see here.
Which I will say, I'm going to plug my future blog post for... what it'll be next Monday after because this show, this Monday, boom, boom, boom. I'm going to be reading aloud and passing a little opinion off on the actual opening statements from a lot of these testimonies that have been going on this week.
So the last time we were here was the 18th. And the day before that, Gordon Sondland had testified, and he was the U.S. ambassador to the European Union. On the 22nd, William B. Taylor Jr. testified. He's the top American diplomat in the Ukraine. On the 23rd, Laura K. Cooper testified, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Russia. On the 26th, Philip T. Rieker testified, the Acting Assistant Secretary at the State Department's Bureau of European and Eurasian Affairs. On the 29th, Alexander Vindman testified, the director of European Affairs of the National Security Council. On the 30th, Christopher J. Anderson testified, a Foreign Service officer who served as an advisor to Kurt D. Volker. And on the 30th, Catherine M. Croft, a Foreign Services officer who worked at the National Security Council, testified. And then on the 31st, Halloween, Timothy Morrison, the outgoing top Russia expert on the National Security Council, testified. So all these people working in the Trump administration have testified in front of various members, regardless of what you're hearing from conservative media. There are Republicans and Democrats both in the room. People who have top Jesus fucking Christ.
You got this.
People who have top secret security clearance. Yeah, that'll do the trick.
Yeah.
People who have top secret security clearance in the House Investigative and Judiciary Committee are allowed in these rooms, and people who don't are not. And that's because you are discussing things that are top secret classified, right? For the same reason that you have open hearings in the House and you have closed hearings in the House, there are some things that can be discussed in open and some things that cannot. Also, since we've been here, we had a storm of Republican representatives try and get their way into the SCIF, right? They tried to, which stands for...
I was like, wait, from the beginning of the show? Or?
Secured Communication and Information Facility. That's what SCIF stands for, because last time we were here, we had no fucking idea. Nope. So people who are not cleared to be hearing this information because they don't have top security clearance, people who brought their fucking cell phones into the SCIF, which is way, way, way against the rules, and people who barged their fucking way in without asking because they shouldn't have been there anyway, tried to and did barge their way in and then were removed forcibly by the, I mean, not, forcibly, but were removed by the police officers in that room because they shouldn't fucking be there in the first place. And it's a security concern to bring your cell phone into a secured, what the fuck did I just call it?
SCIF.
Yeah, but it's a secured
classified information facility.
Christ. Communication information facility.
There it is.
To bring your cell phone into that area is super fucking dangerous.
Yep.
Super dangerous.
You can't do it
security.
like we have, one of the biggest aspects to our local economy here is the two naval stations that we have. And there is a lot of people that operate in a security clearance situation where you have to, when you sign up for the job, you bring your phone in you have to remove the camera to your phone.
Yeah.
Or you can't work there. Or you just have to leave it in your car or something. Yeah.
Right.
And so our controversy right now shouldn't be talking about impeachment. We should be talking about all these special elections that have to happen now because every single one of these people blatantly broke the law.
Yeah.
And need to be removed from office.
But for some reason they're being championed by, the Republicans for trying to combat the so-called really unconstitutional process.
Yeah. But I don't think they really are. I think
you don't think they're really being championed, or?
No, I don't think so. I mean, realistically, anybody that really knows what's going on.
I think it was just kind of a win the day type of thing.
Yeah, this is like just some bullshit ploy to try to be like, we are morally superior. It's like, I don't care. You're an idiot. Shut up.
Right. So of all these people who testified since the last time we were here, I think the big three are Gordon Sondland, who testified the day before we recorded the last time, Alexander Vindman, and then Bill Taylor, right? And so I have kind of boiled down the things that we learned from these three individuals, and these are going to be among the opening statements that Colin is going to read as the audio blog post, which I think that's a really, really great thing to do.
I'm going to do a whole series of them now.
So Gordon Sondland, he testified on the 17th, I believe I said, and from him, we learned that Donald Trump had involved Rudy Giuliani in the Ukraine involvement, right? Involved him in the Ukraine involvement.
The Ukraine affair.
Yeah.
That's the most, that's like the title I've liked the most lately.
Yeah. We had learned that Giuliani had also requested a written statement about the investigation regarding Burisma from the Ukrainian government. He wanted them to have some type of letter or written statement saying that they were going to hold investigations and that would help them get a meeting with the president.
And this is Sondland you're talking about, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I'll save this for Bill Taylor.
And we also learned that, or he said that he wasn't told Gordon Sondland said he was never told that it wasn't wrong to require an investigation into the 2016 election by Ukraine, right? Because there's all this question about, because we'll talk about it as we get to Bill Taylor and Alexander Vindman, that they told Gordon Sondland, once they found out that this was the plan, that you should not be asking a foreign government to be investigating, these political appointees. Like, none of this stuff that's personal political stuff should be anywhere near involved any of this money going into Ukraine.
Yep.
Both of these individuals claim to have told Gordon Sondland that, and he says that no one ever told him that. He had no idea that was even in question, that they should be doing this, right? When Alexander Vindman and Bill Taylor, both career politicians, well, Alexander Vindman was in the armed forces for an incredibly long time.
He still is. He's active duty now.
Right, and still is, and just working for the government. And then Bill Taylor is a career politician who worked in the Bush administration and now under the Trump administration. Both say that they told Gordon Sondland that this was wrong and it shouldn't be happening.
And this is all around the same time that Bolton leaves.
Yes,
I think this was the last straw on the campus.
Yes,
back
because
for Bolton.
it was the meeting. There was a meeting in which Alexander Vindman was told by Gordon Sondland that this was happening. He said, we need to request that they are going to do an investigation into Burisma and all this shit. And then we can talk about a meeting with the president. We can talk about this money that's going into it. Alexander Vindman said, the National Security Council is not going to have anything to do with that. We have nothing to do with domestic political affairs. That has nothing to do with us. We're not going to tell the Ukrainian government they have to do that. We're not doing that. It was in that same meeting that aides to John Bolton, I believe John Bolton was there as well, who said, that is ridiculous. This is not anything that should be being discussed. You guys are going to tell the lawyers about this because this is so ludicrous. And Giuliani is the one that told you to do this. This guy's a fucking hand grenade. This is a drug deal. This is all this shit. These are real things, that John Bolton said. Someone that we called a radical. John Bolton is saying Rudy Giuliani is a hand grenade and this is a fucking drug deal in between the Ukraine and the Trump administration. Right?
That's because John Bolton's specialty is dealing with conflict on the geopolitical level, right? This is diplomacy on the geopolitical level. And he goes, no, motherfuckers. This is not the way this is supposed to work. He's a by-the-book guy. He just uses it to kind of his shady advantage when it comes to regime change and stuff. And
oh my good God.
I told you. Danky, dread bread.
That's amazing.
Isn't it? I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm just going to put it right here.
That's amazing.
Because I'm good for now. This is Sondland we're talking about.
Yes. And then
it's important to note, I think, right on just looking 2020 at this, Sondland is part of this, what do they call them? The Three Amigos now? Some of the three head leaders in that branch of what we'll get into later.
Rudy
with
Giuliani,
Bill Taylor,
Gordon Sondland, and then
Ambassador
Perry.
Volker.
Yeah, and then Rick Perry also part of this fucking little gang that will come to be known as the informal channel to the Ukraine, right? Yep. And just from this little timeline I have here, another little excerpt. Gordon Sondland, a U.S. ambassador to the European Union, told House investigators that Mr. Trump largely delegated Ukraine policy to his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, a move that he disagreed with. And Mr. Sondland has defied the administration by agreeing to comply with a subpoena to testify, but his lawyer will not produce documents unless the State Department says that that's okay. That's important to note because the Trump administration, as we may or may not have talked about before, has told anyone who works for them or has worked for them that they should not testify. They are not allowed to testify. The subpoena don't mean shit. You shouldn't go. A move which I truly, truly believe is or could be indicative of a first step away from democracy and towards a unilateral executive theory taking place and manifesting itself in the form of someone who intends to take more control than the executive branch has ever had before.
Oh, dude, this is Vice 2.0.
It's deeply concerning to me that we have someone that is willing to openly defy a co-equal branch of the United States government and to be supported by modern media in some realms and by politicians. And it's gravely concerning to me that not every politician, not all 535 congressmen in the United States have all come out and said, don't you fucking say that. You will literally turn over every document that we ask for. You will comply with every subpoena that we put out because we are the United States Congress. You don't make the rules here. The Constitution does. And for you to deny us access is unconstitutional.
I have a slight caveat.
What you got?
I would only reach that level of offended constitutionally when it goes to an actual vote to impeach the president. Because what really started this whole thing off, the major controversy on this recently was Nancy Pelosi essentially taking a vote on the process of the impeachment inquiry. Because she announced a while back that the official impeachment inquiry was starting. There was no vote because that is the House prerogative to do impeachment whatever freestyle way they want to do.
Right.
Because ultimately, as far as the House is concerned, from my understanding, their entire involvement is in the ability to investigate and present evidence to support their desire to impeach. And then all that goes up to the Senate, and that's what really matters, is because that is the trial portion. This is somebody bringing a fake ass lawsuit against you that I got to defend myself, and these guys are going to look like idiots.
I think that even if the president is not indicted in the Senate, I still think that it matters because he still has to wear that. You know what I'm saying? He still has to wear the fact that he was impeached in the House, even if he wasn't removed by the Senate, the same way that Bill Clinton did. You know,
but as of right now,
you still have to wear that.
We can say it any way we want right now, but I mean, the president is being impeached right now. The process has started.
Yeah.
But technically, it does not start until there's a vote. And now they officially voted on the first step of starting, and paper trail.
But this isn't
follow the resolution.
But this isn't the vote. No, this is
the
a vote.
Will be. That's why all the Republicans can say no, because it was a partisan vote. 100%. It was on party lines.
On a resolution, which is essentially outlining the rules of the public portion of this inquiry, right? That's what this vote for. Because there's a lot of people that don't understand. They thought that the impeachment inquiry itself was the impeachment process, and
which it technically
it's a step of it, but it's not the actual,
because it can manifest itself
in
any way.
But it's not the actual impeachment, is what my point is. That there's a distinction between the two that's important to note. The same way that this vote is important to distinguish that it is not the vote that is being asked for, but this is a vote simply on the rules of the open stage of the inquiry, right?
Yeah. Because we're moving publicly now.
Right. So on Thursday, there was the vote, and on the resolution that passed 232 to 196, which is to allow subpoenas to start being placed, for open hearings to happen, for closed hearings to continue to happen, for the president and his lawyers to be able to call witnesses, ask questions, be present for the hearings, and then in turn, use all this evidence and whatnot in the eventual Senate trial. And this gives, Republicans subpoena power and able to request witnesses. It also gives Democratic leadership the power to deny witnesses, deny subpoenas, things like that, which might be shitty, but again, is their right to do. It's a political process. So politics,
now we're dealing with politics.
Politics is inherent in it. There's really no way around that, in
all of our issue talk over the last, year plus.
Yeah.
There's always politics behind those things. But in this case, it is 100% pure politics.
Yeah.
And so there is the things that are going to unfold from now on are going to be some of the most ridiculously said things to do. Yeah. And that's essentially just to make political moves at this point until we get to that point where they're either going to actually vote on the resolution to impeach or not.
It's also important to note that the secrecy of the process thus far is not totally unprecedented, especially in the realm of Richard Nixon. There was a lot of hearings that happened in private before they came out. They're not, identical situations. I'm not arguing that they are, because there was also special prosecutors that were active at the time of both Richard Nixon and of Bill Clinton that differ from these situations a little bit. But my point is only that it is often said, there's a couple of bullshit arguments I have written down here, that are often used that are illegitimate. And one of them is that this is a totally unfounded process. It's totally ridiculous. We've never seen anything like this before. It's not completely unprecedented. Like I said, they're not identical situations, but it's also not an outlined set of rules where there's a certain way it has to be done. So they can just not just do what they want, but they can kind of do what they want, especially if there's precedent for it in the past.
Yeah. And that's what gives the Republicans room to do stupid stunts like storm the skiff.
Right.
Because there is no real rules other than the House makes their own rules on how they do this.
Which speaks to another nonsense argument that you were kind of talking about, that this is a purely political process. There's not a whole lot of rules. There's huge argument of, the president is not getting due process.
He's not. Nothing's happening.
There is no due process in this political situation that's happening here. It's not a judicial trial. He's not, at risk of being sentenced to 50 years in prison or some shit like that.
Not yet.
You know what I'm saying? This isn't a judicial process.
No.
There is no due process here. They are making it up as they go, as they are supposed to do, because that's how it's written out, right?
Yep.
So the due process thing is ridiculous.
Because he will get due process when it gets to the Senate.
Right. When
because
there is
the
a trial
judicial
happening.
branch gets involved.
Right.
And that's why this is just one big investigation and a gathering of evidence and a gathering of information, and then they make the call whether or not they want to send it up the chain or they kill it here.
And in the Senate, as we've talked about, the Chief Justice of the United States sits in the Senate and watches over the trial as the judge would in a standard trial anywhere else in the United States.
Yep.
They sit there and they hear all the evidence. I believe that other justices are there as well. I'm sure they're allowed to attend, whether or not it's part of the process.
Oh, I'm sure.
The senators are there as the jury, and then there are lawyers for both sides that come and make those arguments. As we said, in the other process, there was the special prosecutor that was there, either, on the side of the Republicans or, not against the president. There was a special prosecutor there to present the evidence, and the president has his lawyers to defend himself, right?
Yeah. Is that the only major difference here? Is at this point, there's no special
From what I
prosecutor?
understand, is that's part of why the other ones were done in secret, is because there was a special prosecutor who was doing his shit in secret and was working for the House and therefore reporting those things.
I would imagine at some point they would have to appoint one. Probably at the point where it would probably be in the resolution or the act that they passed to.
I don't know. I know that for Bill Clinton, Starr was already there because he was doing the shit with Whitewater, and then it got expanded into this other stuff that turned into the impeachment inquiry. So,
kind of like what Robert Mueller started doing and turned into doing.
Right. And so I have a hard time believing that if they did, if Donald Trump wins again in 2020, right? Let me lie this out for you, right? If Donald Trump wins again in 2020, the impeachment inquiry or the impeachment process itself is not done. I think that there will be a special prosecutor put in place to let's get this over with, right? But I also don't think that it will be Robert Mueller. It will be a completely another person doing some other shit where, as Bill Starr, whatever that guy's name is, Bob, whatever the fuck his name is.
Bob Woodward.
Starr, who did the Bill Clinton investigation. Yeah. He handled that whole deal. Robert Mueller would not be involved in this next thing. He's way too controversial of a person to.
He's already compromised.
Yeah, to be involved in the next investigation. But from what I understand, that's really the main difference. Yeah, is that there is no special prosecutor involved. And so it can be made out to be much more partisan because it's the leaders of the committees in the House that are doing this investigation.
Yeah. Which by nature is partisan because it's dependent on the balance of what party's in power.
A fair argument. Yeah. But it's just
one of those it is what it is, bro. That's the system we have.
Right. So, and those people having been in those positions for so long that would allow them to be the chairmen of the committee, I think shows that there would be an inherent political bias in those people simply by virtue of the fact that, like I said, they've been there for so long.
Which is another aspect that bothers me about AOC getting appointed to a committee because now that she's already on the committee, she can work her way up, and she doesn't. Obviously, through her rhetoric, doesn't have an idea how the country works. But I'm sorry, I kind of derailed you off to Sutherland, but
no, that's okay. I was going to move on to
was Bill Taylor.
Vindman, real quick.
Vindman.
Because Vindman said
was he before Bill Taylor?
No, I believe Bill Taylor was first. So we can talk about
But
Bill
Vindman
Taylor
was
first.
quick.
Yes. Vindman, who served in the armed forces for an incredibly long time and was injured in an IED attack in the Middle East, now serves as the director for European Affairs of the National Security Council. He was on the phone call between Mr. Trump and President Zelensky. President Trump and President Zelensky. It's weird that in here they call him Mr. Trump and not President Trump.
Right.
Super weird. And it's throwing me off because we call him the president, out of respect because he's the fucking president, and they call him Mr. Trump. And I think that that's very strange.
Yeah. That's when you go, because it's always Representative so-and-so, Senator so-and-so, Congressman so-and-so, something like that, or Mr. President or President so-and-so.
Yeah.
And then you have like Mr. Giuliani because he's operating in an official capacity, but he's not a public official.
So Alexander Vindman was on the phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky, and that started this whole impeachment inquiry. And Alexander Vindman said that the quote unquote transcript, right, that we talked about, we called it a printout or a readout, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not a transcript, and
it's an annotative transcript.
Right. It is compiled of people's memories of the conversation. Mm-hmm. So Alexander Vindman said that the transcript is incomplete and that there are things there that drastically change the perception of it. And I have a paragraph here that we can fucking...
Oh, dude. Because context matters.
Yeah.
That's why... Oh, dude. So, I'll take a sidetrack while you're listening to that. Dan Carlin recently put out a book. He wrote a book while he was kind of in between hardcore history and whatever that... I can't remember the name of that World War I documentary that they just made. But the new Hardcore History came out about the Pacific Theater in World War II.
Right.
And it's finally got to that point after 3 episodes of like 4-hour-long shows that he's actually there. It's modern. He's talking about MacArthur and stuff like that. But he also released his book, and I started listening to that this week, and it's phenomenal. It's just one long hardcore history that's kind of chopped up in a different way, but it is phenomenal so far. That... And super plug for The Madness of Crowds. Michael Malice, I want to say, is the author. I got to double check that. Hang on. Douglas Murray. Yeah. Douglas Murray Michael Malice is the whatever you call him. But yeah, Douglas Murray's new book, The Madness of Crowds. It's gender, race, and identity, I think is the subtitle or whatever. But it's fucking phenomenal. And he's a British man who has a very soothing accent, and he narrates his book too. And so Dan Carlin narrates his, and then Douglas Murray narrates his book, and they are the most like pleasurable things to listen to.
Yeah.
They are so soothing, but it's just so good. The Madness of Crowds, I'm actually going to pick up as a book, and I will, give it to you so that you can read it. Because you usually read, I think, more than you listen to audiobooks.
Yes. I don't have to, with all the podcasts that I listen to at work, I don't have time for audiobooks. They take too long.
They definitely do.
I am just trying to
find that paragraph.
Yeah.
From Vindman. What was the context of the paragraph? So I got Vindman's thing up, I think. His is much shorter than Bill Taylor's was.
Right. And he's in his testimony, he said that he tried to restore the transcript to its original state. And so now I'm trying to find, because I think it was in this article that I read, not in the, in the statement, but this is an article about his testimony. And he said when he was in there that he tried to change, or he tried to restore the transcript to its original state so that it could be a word for word. And he wasn't able to do it, but that there was shit that was left out of there that was legitimate. So I'll have to, I don't know.
Isn't it weird though? Do you think that, like, just in the context of history and the written history and things like that, like that would be a really good thing to have actually written down, verbatim, recorded, transcribed, just for the records of history.
Yeah, if you're going to do something sketchy.
Just period. Just period. It's the information age. We should be if Google knows where I'm at every day of my life,
if you're tracking my phone calls.
Yeah. then I need to know what the fucking president's saying. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask.
No, I don't think so at all. So Alexander Vindman also says that he told Gordon Sondland that the National Security Council would not try and push the Ukraine to look into the 2016 election and crowd strike and fucking all this nonsense, right? That's going on there. And again,
Burisma, Biden, and CrowdStrike.
Right. And I read a couple of different articles about Gordon Sondland and his testimony, and a lot of the different representatives said that he didn't lie, but he said he definitely provided information that covered his ass.
Yeah.
That made him look like he was not as involved as maybe he might have been. But nothing he said was a lie. And they don't have any reason to believe it was a lie. But
and I think because of what Bill Taylor said, I think that's going to be, there's going to be a reason why he tried to be like, well, yeah, I mean, I was there, but I wasn't really there.
Right. Because Bill Taylor's testimony was the one that people were really tripping about. That Bill Taylor said that is the one that kind of exposed that there had been two completely different channels for dealing with the Ukraine. One was the official channel that involved Alexander Vindman, Bill Taylor, and all these other people that usually deal with Eurasian affairs, according with Ukraine.
The standard operating procedure of the State Department. It's why we have a State Department, is so they handle diplomacy
and then
in a lot of fashions.
And then there's this group outside, Rudy Giuliani, Kurt Volker, Gordon Sondland, Rick Perry, that are going over and speaking with the Ukrainian government in an official and yet non-official capacity, because they cannot, I guess it's not against the law for them to be there, but they're not allowed to technically deal make for the United States when they're not deal makers for the United States.
Because they're not the State Department.
Right.
This is an unofficial shadow governmental channel.
Right.
Trying to create policy behind, in lieu of the State Department.
Right.
Why? Nixonian level fucking oh damn it, what's the word? Paranoia. Nixonian level paranoia.
About CrowdStrike?
About the fucking deep state.
Yeah.
He can't trust any of the institutions.
Right.
And so he institutes his own shadow.
And that's been the justification for a lot of people for this. And I told you, I heard like an individual person in the United States, a citizen, say that when they were being interviewed. It was at a fucking town hall for some representative, like in Minnesota or some shit. And one of her constituents was saying like, no, this is right, because he can't trust, the State Department. He can't trust anyone who works for him, because they're all just trying to get him. And Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and all these people, they're just coming after him. And it's like,
you can't, because newsflash, they work for him. It's his problem if he doesn't go in there and clean fucking house when he got elected, because he doesn't know that all your political appointments matter in this giant machine of government. How many times have you heard the term Obama era holdover?
Right.
These are the people that leak to the press. These are the people that are, and I hate the fact that this came out this week, but like there is speculation on who the actual whistleblower was.
Oh, really? And
he's a registered Democrat. He's a Obama era holdover, worked for the FBI and CIA and like all this good stuff. And, nobody's corroborated that. It was from real clear investigations.
Word.
But people are running with that.
Yeah.
And it's like, why was he still here?
Right.
Why was he still here?
If the government leaks like a sieve, why do you have all these people still working?
Because you don't know people that play the game. I mean, there are a lot of jobs for the federal government that only last for like 4 to 8 years.
Yeah.
Because you work for the administration, and when the administration either doesn't like what you do, the way you think, or their term ends, you're usually gone.
You're done.
It's a fucking seasonal job.
Yeah.
But he didn't get that, and now he's paying the price.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, nobody can confirm that.
Oh, absolutely, because there's a whole slew of people who have quit. I mean, there's some of these people who are still in their positions, but many of these people who have testified have quit. Because a lot of them attributed directly to this phone call, because they were so disturbed at either the phone call or when they found out the process in which the phone call came about, right? The conditions that are being laid out, because that's another thing that Bill Taylor said, is that he found out that there were conditions being laid out by this improper, channel to the Ukraine. of things that they had to do before the White House would host them for a meeting, right? And it's theorized that this improper channel knows that a meeting for the Ukrainian president at the White House would be super legitimizing. Very legitimizing to be hosted by the United States, to be there, be involved, and be questioned by the press, and all this stuff is super legitimizing for someone who just got there, who was a comedian before he was a politician and was a president. Would look really good for him to go to the United States and meet with the president of the United States, you know?
Especially given their geopolitical background.
Yes.
They've not been in a good spot for a while. Russia has done some serious internal damage to them.
Terrible things to Ukraine.
And literally conquered portions of it. And there's fucking there's a war right now.
Right.
And it's happening. But all that aside, I have a problem now getting over this. The timing, when you think about what this is happening, the stuff that Bill Taylor's talking about, that Sutherland's talking about, the timeline, and when John Bolton, left / got fired, like the timing, is it purely coincidental that we automatically associated, Trump's foreign policy decisions to him leaving,
right,
versus like looking at this stuff and just knowing that John Bolton he's an administration guy.
Yeah.
He works within the standard channels and does all those things. And then he just does his own thing in foreign policy.
And that's why, not to interrupt you, but just to give some background to that, that's why you said this is like a Vice 2.0 type of thing, right? Because John Bolton in this Vice, the Christian Bale movie that we're talking about in that era, the Bush era, he was in there and balling so hard because they were able to do things under that unilateral executive theory. And it's only because of that he was like, yeah, I'll fucking do whatever. I don't give a shit. All this is justified. My theories behind Iran justified behind this and this and this. Fucking bomb them first and all this stuff. It's all justified behind this, He has a reason for everything. Nothing is just because,
Yep.
It may be a really radical way to interpret this thing, but it's all based on something that's already set as precedent or a rule or something. He follows the rules. And that's not, like I said, not to interrupt, but just to give back to what you were saying. But
I think that it makes me think now that he left because of this happening when we didn't know it was happening.
Because of this drug deal?
And not so much the fucking foreign policy shit.
Yeah.
It might have just been a combination of both, who knows, but it's very, very interesting. And do we hit Bill Taylor yet? Are we
We're
into
talking
him?
about him right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that simple, he was the first one that established that idea of a shadow
Yes.
channel.
Yeah. He also said that Mick Mulvaney is the one that ordered the hold on the Ukrainian defense assistance, which is interesting because...
Now, did he actually say that?
Yes. In the opening statement, he said that he learned that Mick Mulvaney is the one that ordered the holding of the assistance, which is interesting because Mick Mulvaney is the acting chief of staff, but he's also still the head of the Office of Management of Budget, right? He's still the head of that office.
Because the quote I saw was, she was from the OMB and that her boss had instructed her not to approve any additional funding of security assets for Ukraine until further notice.
Yep. And then later...
And now is he insinuating that her boss is the head of OMB, or does he name him?
It's after that he says that.
Okay.
So
I was flying through this thing, grabbing notes.
It's deeper into that he says that he knew that it was Mulvaney that did it.
Now, is that but that's the problem with this testimony stuff. Did he say that, he knew that, or can he prove that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
the next day, wait, check this. The next day on the phone, Dr. Hill and Mr. Vindman tried to reassure me that they were not aware of any official change in the U.S. policy toward Ukraine, OMB's announcement notwithstanding. They did confirm that the hold on security assistance for Ukraine came from Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and that the Chief of Staff maintained a skeptical view of the Ukraine. So Dr. Hill and Alexander Vindman both told him that Mick Mulvaney is the one that ordered the hold on the defense assistance, right? Mm-hmm. And then this next paragraph, in the same July 19th phone call, They gave me an account of the July 10 meeting with the Ukrainian officials at the White House. Specifically, they told me that the Ambassador Skånland had connected quote-unquote investigations with the Oval Office meeting for President Zelensky, which so irritated Ambassador Bolton, John Bolton, that he abruptly ended the meeting, telling Dr. Hill and Mr. Vindman that they should have nothing to do with domestic politics. He also directed Dr. Hill to quote-unquote brief the lawyers. Dr. Hill said that Ambassador Bolton referred to this as a quote-unquote drug deal. After the July 10 meeting, Ambassador Bolton opposed a call between President Zelensky and President Trump out of concerns that it quote-unquote would be a disaster. So
how long before the mainstream media starts touting Bolton as a hero again?
Dude.
After leaving, after the foreign...
If he goes and testifies, it's the next fucking day. If he goes and testifies, it's the very next day.
I love the hypocrisy happening over there, though.
So, like I said...
They just blow with the wind.
The thing between Mick Mulvaney is interesting because he's the acting chief of staff. So he's constantly with the president all of the time because he's his chief of staff, right? But he's also the director of the Office of Management of Budget, right? So it's
got to have control of the purse,
so it's
baby.
within his purview to withhold that assistance, but it could also be fucking postulated by anyone who's, partisan enough to argue it, that he was told directly by the president because of his association with the president in his position as chief of staff, and then used his position in the Office of Management
I hate
my
budget.
fucking life to withhold the assistance. And that, if nothing else, is a downfall of, like you said, being terrible at filling fucking positions because you've had all of this turnover and have no one else to fill this job besides this guy who looks sketchy as shit doing all these jobs at the same time.
Well, it's because
at the best, you're doing a terrible job.
Well, I think that's because he likes to run his own shit. He likes to be so involved. But the problem is,
he's doing terrible.
He's an idiot.
He is.
That's the problem. This is not, he's running the semi-corrupt but still barely above board New York real estate company. He's still doing the same shady shit. He's got shadow governments running investigations. Essentially trying to dictate foreign policy.
Yeah.
Unelected officials. Why the fuck are we? If you want to do that, go to town, but you better dissolve the State Department at that point. Or at least close down the Ukrainian branch. I don't know how the fuck it works, but if you're going to just completely disregard official channels of diplomacy and do your own thing, like you do on trade, like you do on everything, let's just try to pretend that you're trying to be legit here.
Yeah, it's no good.
It's no good. But unfortunately, unless the entirety of the Senate was as offended as we are, and even if they are, unless they can get over their problem with, loyalty to the party and this stuff, I don't think you can impeach on anything that we know as of yet. And that's the problem is we're working off of written, publicly released opening statements.
Yeah.
And then getting selective leaking of small conversations or things that the committee members might, throw out with a lot of grayness to it.
Selective only in the way that only certain things are being leaked, right? Not in the way that it is selective to promote their argument, right? Because we don't know that. Right. And
no,
I don't want to postulate that that's the thing because that's what's being argued is that the selective leaking is just things that will promote the Democrats' argument. And that could be the case. So that's a legitimate argument. That's a legitimate concern,
is a problem,
right?
But that's a party problem because the Republicans are doing it themselves. They're coming out and essentially parroting the party narrative of this is the sham, this is ridiculous. They don't have anything new to say. They don't have anything interesting to say. But the Democrats do. And so it's new, and so we go with it because our elected representatives fucking say it.
Yeah.
We don't know if that's what it was said. We don't know anything about it other than the publicly released opening statements, which is just, I have to look at Nancy Pelosi's posture politically and the fact that she's willing to call out the Republicans' bluff on this thing and actually vote, have a vote for the process and do all this stuff, that she thinks she's on to something. Unless she's totally lost it. But other than that, we have some real shady stuff going on, but you're not going to convince Mitch McConnell to tell the other Republicans to vote for impeachment at this point.
Well, and
there's something else out there.
I'm hard pressed to believe that if there was evidence that would cut against this Democratic narrative, right? That would cut against the idea of all this terrible shit, and a Republican that was totally redacted or, not top secret, something that could be released legally, right? And a Republican member inside one of these committees released it. I'm hard pressed to believe that they would be told to leave. That they'd be told, you can't be here anymore because we know that you did it and you can't be here anymore. I think that's
because
bullshit.
He could turn around and be like, motherfucker.
Like, well, look at all this other shit. And I'm just trying to make sure that it's fair because this looks awfully partisan to me. And this is totally legitimate. Nothing here is top secret. I redacted everything that needs to be redacted. And then I passed it on because this is legitimate. People need to see this, right?
But if he does that.
And I'm hard pressed to believe that would be the case. And so I think to me, this is a sign that there isn't anything like that. There isn't anything to validate this other than whatever shit people are trying to make up to cover their tracks,
So the argument that if they did have something that ran counterintuitive to the party's narrative, the Republican Party's narrative, as in this is a sham, this is all bullshit, because none of the Republicans
someone would have released it
that.
because they are smart enough to know that if they do release it, as long as it's kosher, right? They won't be cut out of the process because it's too.
Well, yeah. I don't think they would be cut out of the process,
and that's what I'm saying. Is that so? If they're not doing it right, then there's nothing there. I don't think.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think you give them too much sway or too much. I think you give them too much of the benefit of the doubt on that one because I feel like unless there's a Republican out there ready to jump on the grenade that is backstabbing McConnell. You're not going to get any support. Your political career
I don't
is
see it that
done.
way. I don't see it as backstabbing McConnell because they're cutting against the Democratic narrative, right? My concern and
if there's anything legitimate,
that's what I'm saying. Legit. That's what I'm saying. That's why I don't think there's anything legit they can grab onto because they would have released it, right? If there was something legit, then a Republican representative that's inside of the skiff would have released it because if the Democrats were to cut that representative out of the process, they lose any legitimacy towards the argument of a nonpartisan process of impeachment, right?
Or
it's you can't even make that argument anymore if someone releases something that's totally legit, totally kosher, and actually cuts against the argument legitimately.
Okay.
You can't cut them out because then you can't make the argument that this is a nonpartisan impeachment process and that this is for the good of America because you cut out a Republican who released something that is just counter to the narrative that may have come out later anyway.
Yeah, because then all of a sudden you have you got another blue wave.
That's what I'm saying.
Let me play off this.
You have no leg to stand on to say that you're nonpartisan in this process if you're cutting out Republicans releasing shit that's kosher.
But let me throw this one at you.
Let's hear it.
So, because this is fun, we're like trying to get into Mitch McConnell's mind here for a minute. Now, if they have a trump card that devastates this whole fucking thing, I wouldn't put it past Mitch now to be like, no, nobody say shit. We have proof now that this is a sham. We're going to hold on to this fucking ace until we're ready because as of right now, I think that if even Trump stays in office in 2020, they lose the Senate.
I told you that. I called that months ago.
They lose the Senate. And he goes, if we can hold on to this long enough and if we can just fucking devastate them with this, we need to hold on to that because we need to get back the power.
Yeah.
And we need our people in the chairs.
Okay.
So we're going to hold it. We're going to play the Trump card at the right time, right before they're ready to start the investigation.
I could see
or
that.
wait till it starts.
And it's in the Senate.
And then Mitch is already like, I already got this, bitch.
Yeah.
Here, lawyer, bring up this fucking surprise piece of evidence, blah, blah, blah. It's this bullshit. And you know what that piece of evidence is going to be? The IG report. No. Because that's about the Russia Mueller thing.
The IG report, is to investigate whether or not there was corruption inside the government when looking into the president's campaign in 2016. Mm-hmm. And then the Justice Department launched their own investigation into the exact same thing, which is really weird.
Now, what if the party leadership in the Democratic Party is caught up in all that, and now they have an argument that they've literally been trying to unseat the president since the day they got in office? This entire argument is invalid.
I think that's apparent, but I don't think in the deep state form of the argument. I think people have been trying to stop President Trump from being the president since he said grab her by the pussy.
That's very true.
Since that happened, people have been calling him of just a monster and all this shit. And it stayed the exact same. The people who hated him then hate him now. And they gathered some more followers along the way. But people have hated him since he started running. You know what I'm saying? So
it's very true.
I think that the fact that they've wanted to impeach him since he got in the office is unquestionable, right? I don't think that there's any question to it at all.
At all.
But I don't think that it has manifested itself in a deep state corruption type of way. I think that they've all been really out front, that they fucking hate him, and they're going to do everything they can to stop anything he wants to do. Yep. I don't think that it's been hidden at all. I think they have done everything they can right out front because they've been arguing this whole time.
Every single Democratic candidate wants to do that.
That's been the argument, is that they're fighting him. So I think they're doing everything to get him out of office. Anything they do, they want to talk about it because they want to keep on with that narrative that they are defeating Donald Trump.
It's not healthy.
I don't think that it's manifested in a deep state thing, but I think it's apparent. I think it's crazy that it's even a question that they're like, they've just been trying to, impeach him since 2016. It's like, no shit. I don't. Yeah. What else did you think they were doing? They just didn't have it's like they were doing it, but they didn't know what to call it. Like they were always searching for something. Like, we need to get rid of him somehow. We need to get rid of him somehow. And during the whole Mueller report, we said, if you want to get rid of him, you have to impeach him, right? We've said that the whole time. Mueller, we knew that from the beginning, that Mueller was not going to get President Trump out of the office because he couldn't. He didn't have the power. No. That even if he gave you something crazy that you knew that he broke the law, you still had to impeach him. You have to impeach him or he has to resign, and he's not going to resign. Yep. We've been saying this for years now. Yep. And it's the same thing stands true now. They just didn't know, or pretended they didn't know at the time. They were hoping for something else. They didn't want to do this.
Which is kind of fucked up, don't you think?
Huge waste of time. Yeah. Huge waste of time.
Don't you think you should be like working on things like, I don't know, now that the immigration wave has died off, you're still not fixing the problem?
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, it's not as bad now, so everybody's quit talking about it. Let's just me. No. We're not going to worry about that. We're not going to do anything else since 2018. Nothing has gotten fucking done almost. Nothing at all. Just impeachment.
Right.
Investigations, impeachment. It's disgusting. So I think we're done with that for now. Are you?
I think so.
Okay. Because before you launched into your normal sports, if you're ready for sports, I want to lead off and get your opinions on things.
Okay.
The NCAA
sports
recently decided they're going to start allowing players to make money off of their likeness.
Fucking ain't right. I want to play some fucking NCAA football games again.
Right?
Yeah. No,
what is this going to do?
Fantastic.
Do you think this is going to... What is this going to do now that there hasn't been this suppression on celebrity for college athletes? And now it's free reign.
And I don't really think that there has been a suppression on it. I mean, maybe monetarily, but the stars...
Once these kids start fucking balling out, the total landscape is going to change.
There'll be national celebrities, but I mean, like, people who watch college football know who the stars are. The people who watch college football know who the top 10 draft picks are going to be the next year. They know who fucking Tua Tagovailoa, whatever the fuck that guy's name is from Alabama. They know who he is. They know who Justin Herbert is. They know who these incredible running back and quarterbacks are throughout the country because those are the top athletes. I think that they'll definitely reach a point of superstardom,
and I'm afraid that it's going to have the same effect that something like Hollywood has, where you're only looking for the next star. You're not actually, there's a lot of very talented actors and stuff out there that never get a shot. They never get a break. They never get their big break. I think there's a lot of fucking transfer correlations over to the podcast platform now that it's flooded. Yeah. Everybody's got a podcast now. And so, but now that there's so many different celebrities out there, they control so much focus in the NCAA. Is that going to detract on people that are not quite, I mean, is talent truly going to dictate? Is the meritocracy going to make the celebrity in college football? Or is it going to be a combination of skill and personality only?
I think the way that football sits now, talent will always...
Because talent pays.
Talent and personality will always be what dominates in the NFL, right? At least the way that it sits now. Because even people who have a moderate interest in football, right? You can name fucking maybe 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, maybe 10 running backs, maybe 10 wide receivers. You know what I'm saying?
Hard maybe.
But can you name the top offensive lineman in the NFL? Can you name the top D tackle in the NFL?
Hell no.
Can you name the top strong safety in the NFL?
Hard no.
So all of these people who have incredible fucking talent, amazing skill, you still don't know who their names are, but you know who Antonio Brown is. Motherfucker doesn't even play in the NFL anymore. You know what his name is. You know who Tom Brady is. You know what I'm saying? You know who Russell Wilson is. You know who Baker Mayfield is because he's got a big fucking mouth and he was really good in college and he's come out and has all these expectations and all this shit. But if you haven't been watching, if this is the first year that you've watched football, you're still going to know who those people are because they're talked about constantly, but you're not going to know who Ryan Tannehill is. Ryan Tannehill is the guy that's starting for the Titans now, but he started for like 10 years for the fucking Dolphins.
So I think now what's probably going to happen is college football is just going to get way more popular. Which I don't think is a bad thing because it's already up there.
Popular as fuck as it is. College football is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry.
There's going to be people like me now, the moderate football watchers,
who get to see it.
You know, like that are going to be more interested in that now. I think that's an overall good. That's definitely a plus for the NCAA.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
I think there should be some type of salary cap, you know, because I think it can be really dangerous to give really young kids a lot of money like that, you know. But I also think
the thing is, it's just on their likeness and stuff right now, so it's like brand deals and shit like that.
But I also, I think it's dangerous to give kids a lot of money like that. But I also think that it's important for those athletes to be able to support themselves and be able to market their skills for the time that they have them. You know, I think that that's really important, and I don't have any problem with that.
Yep.
But I also think that the schools or the NCAA needs to set up some type of service for financial advisors that's run through the NCAA that is not paid by the athletes or anything like that. They are just there to teach these kids how to handle this money so they're not out there fucking wasting it, getting in trouble and shit, because that's liable to happen when you give 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids money, you know? So I think that that's really important. I think
if you had that kind of money when you were that old,
dangerous. I might be dead.
Dangerous.
I might be dead.
I probably would be.
If I was an athlete, I'm less likely to be dead because I can't do drugs as much as I can if I'm not an athlete, you know?
That's right. You just don't play for the XFL.
If I, as not an athlete, received $400,000 when I was 19 years old, I might be dead.
Yeah.
I would buy a stupid car, and then I would have bought so much drugs that I might have died.
Now, the XFL has an even bigger pool of players to pick from, because what if you're a college kid that likes to blaze and play football?
And I think
I'll go work for the XFL and make a decent paycheck.
I think that it helps the XFL too because they can have more stars that maybe weren't good enough to play in the NFL, but they're good enough to play in the XFL, and people might know their name a little bit already because they saw them play in college.
But follow that salary cap problem now. You're not going to get a cheap, awesome first round pick or anything like that if they're already fucking stars. They're gonna.
Shit. That's
like the draft will become really important because you can make an investment in a guy that you want to hold on to for a year and then sell him for a shit ton of money.
Yeah, and there's because it's not uncommon, especially for second, third, fourth round draft picks that turn out to be exceptionally well, to pay them, well, you have to, and you can a lot of times have a fifth-year option and stuff like that and really pay them not shit for those first 5 years. And then when they want big money, be like, all right, we'll piece the fuck out and make it somewhere else. We're not going to do that here. That's really common.
Like, is it going to raise, if you got a D tackle that is the man in college and everybody wants him on their fucking team.
It's done by position,
now all of a sudden he's worth even more than he was before.
Yeah, because he was making stacks when he was in college, and now
so what's
he's
that
got a
going to do to the salary cap game in the NFL? Because now you're not buying new cars off the factory that you don't know how they're going to perform or something. Like you're making an investment in trust.
I believe the NCAA is going to form some type of players association. The NFL has the NFLPA is the NFL Players Association that I believe has a board member that's made up partially of players and stuff like that. And those are the ones that go in and help argue the collective bargaining agreement between the league every year and the players. And so I believe that the NCAA is forming something like that for this. Yeah. And so I would imagine that the NFLPA and the NCAA would have to work together, because they're the ones that determine the salaries and stuff like that and work, with payment of players and percentages and shit like that.
I think this is going to be a big
It'll be a massive overhaul of the way that the NCAA is conducted now. But I think that it's
affordable
a good thing.
College football games.
I think that it's a good thing overall. And no, because it's not costing the NCAA money. It's not. It's only.
I know. But you don't think the school's going to jack up ticket prices now that they have all stars and fucking celebrities?
No, because again, I think that the people who are going to college football games now, they know those people already. If you don't. Because you're not going to go, If you're going to go to a football game, because
the viewing demographic may change because of the celebrity aspect of it, the new popularity of it. It's going to be more out there.
I don't think that it'll be.
Well, that's a bad example. You walk by like, who's that on the Wheaties box? I don't know who that is.
Not in demographic. I think you might see an increase, but it will be an increase from people who watch the NFL and don't watch college football to people who watch the NFL and now they also watch college football. So a bunch of people. I used to not give a fuck about professional football. I only used to like college football because I thought they were playing harder. They had more to play for. It was more fun. The scores were higher. I enjoyed it more.
And then you get behind your people, and then when they go to the fucking Seahawks, you get mad excited.
Right. So,
like, dude, those are my people.
Right. And so I think that if anything, you'll just see an increase in that same type of audience, I think that
the NCAA is just going to start making more stacks.
Just more. Yeah. And I think I would hope that if anything, it would lead to a decrease in ticket prices because they're making stacks other ways,
Yeah, but it doesn't work that way. Like it never has.
I don't know, man. A lot of
the better your football team is, the more expensive your tickets are. So, the Mariners are dog shit, so tickets are cheap.
Atlanta,
Seahawks are pretty decent, so tickets are mad fucking expensive.
But stadiums and teams are finding other ways to make it a better experience for people going, right? Atlanta just built a new ass stadium, and when they built it, they met with the community, and they're like, what can we do to make you guys want to go to more games, right? And one of the things was cheaper concessions. So they have this whole list of shit in the stadium in Atlanta that's brand new. So they have a whole slew of things in Atlanta in the brand new stadium that are $1 or like $2. You know what I'm saying? Cheap ass shit because the ticket might be more expensive, but now you can at least come here and get a fucking hot dog for $1.
Because the overage on a hot dog and a beer is much cheaper to cover and make your customers come back. And you can still make a good amount of money.
So they're finding different ways to make it make more sense for people to go there.
Reactive capitalism.
I like
catering to your fucking
there
customer
are
base.
Cheaper beers at CenturyLink Field now. Not all of them, because definitely if you get a Bud Light in the stands, it's still going to be $11 because they're bringing it to you. But if you go and get beers, some of the beers are cheaper now. They're not $11. They're like fucking $7, $9. You know what I'm saying? Which is still expensive.
But it's still
but in a stadium, it's going to be expensive. So you can get an Elysian beer for maybe $9 instead of fucking $12. You know?
Fucking
still expensive, but at least it's only $9, not $12.
When I went to go see Book of Mormon, the theater industry is the same way.
Oh, it's horrible.
Movie theater. How much? You're going to charge me how much for fucking puffed corn?
Yes.
You know how much corn the fucking United States makes?
I'm going to go.
You're going to charge me that much? That's like 5 cents worth of fucking cost right here, and I'm paying $10.
Yeah. I'm going to go see a movie today. I'm fully prepared to spend $20 on concessions.
Yep. Because they don't make shit off the actual movie tickets.
No. Which is weird because they're fucking like $11.
Well, there's, not that many people go to movies anymore.
I miss the 90s,
like
Colin.
That thing. Yeah.
I wish that we were adults.
Malls and movie theaters.
The best. On Tuesdays at the AMC, you can get to see a movie for $5, I think, though.
I wonder, there was something going on at that, what is it, Regal, I think, the one in Paulsville, where like you can essentially sign up for like a membership program. You go see it, unlimited movies, pay X amount a month, boom, boom, boom. Like you can go up to,
Yes. It's like $100 or something like that.
A year?
I think so.
That's fucking prime rates, dude.
You see a fuckload of movies.
You go make your movies If you see one movie a month, you've made your money back.
Worth it.
Fuck. I need to get on that now.
Yeah, well, look into it and let me know.
I will. All right, so now thank you for that lovely sports discussion.
Yes.
That was fun.
And I think it's something we should talk about more in the future
Hell
because
yeah.
I think it's something I've discussed with a lot of different people and got a lot of different responses. You know?
The evolution of it will be an interesting thing to track.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going, oh, this is dope. This is good. These people that work their asses off are going to start making money and all this stuff. But now, how's the landscape going to change? Let's watch that thing unfold.
I did not consider the way that it would change the pay scale in transitioning to the NFL. So I think that is very interesting. But the NFL has a salary cap, and they have, like whatever teams are able or willing to pay at that time. So they may be able to request more, but there is also such a huge talent difference between the NCAA and the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
That argument from the teams to be like, we don't even know if you're going to turn out, bro.
Because it's always the Tim Tebow thing. I mean,
right.
Even the All-Star can't necessarily make that leap.
You might be a number one
leap.
Yeah, you might be a number one overall pick, but you also might be fucking shit when you get to the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
because regardless of how awesome you are on the college level, you're still going to school. You're still doing all this other stuff. Like you have a life. You're a professional. That's what you do.
Well,
period.
And the biggest thing I've heard, especially from like first round picks, is, when you're going to go first overall, when you're playing in college, you're the best player on the field, no matter what. Anytime that you're playing, you're the best one on the field. When you go to the NFL, it's not like that anymore. Everybody is just as good as you are because they're all playing actively in the NFL. They're starting in the NFL.
On a whole nother
They're all
level.
just as good as you. Yeah.
You have to be able to get up there and compete with the big boys.
Right.
And that's that. That's why I still think like the NCAA shouldn't be so much just a college thing anymore. It should just be a minor league football.
Yeah.
Where people get picked up out of college and then to go play there as, future budding professionals, that they're professionals on another level.
XFL.
And boom, 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 boom.
That's what the XFL is going to be. Yeah. It's just an amateur football league. Yeah. Semi-pro. And I mean, they have semi-pro football now, but the XFL is a step up from semi-pro football, that people will get paid actual, like, fair amounts of money. I'm sure they'll still
balance
have
out, though. Because right now they're getting the people from the professional level that might have just dropped off or for whatever reason don't want to be a part of it
getting
anymore.
People off of practice squads,
smokers.
and they're getting people from Canadian football, and they're getting people who used to play in the NFL, and kids out of college and shit like that. A lot of it are undrafted free agents from the NFL, but I think it's some third of the league or 2/3 of the league that's made up of undrafted free agents. I mean, that's like people who didn't get drafted and then get picked up afterwards that are playing on the team, Yeah. So, or not starting, but they're playing on the team, whether they're a backup or they're shifting in at offensive line. They're not the starter, but they're still playing a third of the snaps every game,
Like, fuck, man, with the rate of injuries nowadays. I mean,
that shit happens all the time. Right. So
XFL, I think, needs to get some kind of broadcast deal with like Facebook.
I'm
Amazon,
sure they do. I don't know exactly what they have, but you could probably look it up. I think
that's going to fucking reach a lot of people.
XFL is going to be rad.
It is. I got high hopes.
And it's going to run like from the end, like after the Super Bowl and then through the spring, I think. So, it's I think it just extends the football season a little bit, which I think is fucking really cool.
The worst time of year is when you can watch basketball and baseball.
I love football. I love the idea of it coming or being here for longer and there being more games,
And a different thing too,
shit. Yeah.
It's new.
Yeah. The rules are a little bit different. Like I said, there's no extra points. Like you have to go for a 2-point try. So there's no kicking extra points, just kickoffs and shit like that. And there's a couple of different rules.
Mm-hmm.
So the Canadian football is interesting to watch for the same reason that like the people are not quite as good, but it's because they're all about as good as each other. It's still interesting to watch. The rules are a little bit different, so it's really kind of weird. Mm-hmm. There's an extra person on the field in Canadian football. The field is a little bit shorter, but it's wider. Like the goalposts are in the front of the end zone, and the people on defense, you can have as many people moving at a time as you want.
That's wild.
And you can like come in cooking from hella far back. There's all kinds of weird shit that you can do in Canadian football. That's like,
that's awesome.
It seems like it's a little more aggressive than American football. It's kind of wild.
Wild.
Yeah.
Now, when you run through your list, do you mind if I I got to pee again, dude. I broke the seal. My bad.
You're hilarious. Yeah, no, I got this. So here we are at the NFL stats. Yeah, we'll do the pick'ems after this. Matt Stafford was the fastest player to over 40,000 passing yards, which Matt Stafford's a fucking good. People sleep on Matt Stafford, but he's good. I like Matt Stafford. Emmanuel Sanders got traded to the 49ers for a 3rd and a 4th round pick. He came from the fucking Broncos. Mohamed Sanu got traded to the Pats for a 2nd round pick. The Lions traded their safety Quandre Diggs to the Hawks for a 5th round pick. That was nice. Quandre Diggs looking good over here in Seattle. The Cardinals traded a 5th or a 6th round pick for Kenyon Drake, and he looked really fucking good against San Francisco the other day, which is awesome. San Francisco's defense is great. DeForest Buckner on there. Go Ducks. That is fantastic. So after that, the Jets traded their D lineman Leonard Williams to the Giants for a 3rd and a 5th round pick, which is the Giants can use that. The Rams traded their corner Aqib Talib and a 5th round pick to the Dolphins for a future late round pick, just trying to get rid of his ass so they don't have to pay him. The 49ers linebacker Quan Alexander is placed on IR with a torn pec. What's his name? Fucking JJ Watt, he tore his pec too. He's out for the rest of the season. The Broncos QB Joe Flacco, he's out for the rest of the season. He fucked up his neck. The Seahawks, they claimed Josh Gordon off of waivers yesterday, so that's nice. I'm really excited about that.
I have Josh Gordon.
Plays for the Hawks now. And the Colts wide receiver T.Y. Hilton is out 3 to 4 weeks of a calf injury. It is pretty bad over there. So let's see. I bought a gun belt the other day. It is coming from China.
My brother just bought a boat.
Well, there you go.
Well, actually, he didn't buy it. He got a deal on it.
Do you guys go fishing? Is that a thing?
It's about to be. That's kind of what that is.
Schedule.
You know. So Josh Gordon, I'm pulling up my. When did that happen? Do you know?
Yesterday.
I wonder if. I wonder how long it takes sometimes for these.
Oh, I'm sure it says Seattle receiver on there.
Oh, it certainly does. That's. Because I've had him, but he hasn't played at all.
Yeah, he's played a couple of games, but he hasn't. No scores on there at all.
No.
Oh,
that's weird. Because I thought he was.
Yeah, he's played a couple of games. I don't know.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
The Seahawks announced Friday that the team claimed Josh Gordon knee off waivers from Patriots. John Boyle of the team's official site reports. Spin confirming what had been reported earlier in the day. Gordon will move to the 3rd organization of his career after the Patriots released the wideout from injury. What's wideout mean?
It's just like a synonym for a wide receiver.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Thursday, Gordon has been ruled out in advance of the Seahawks game Sunday against the Buccaneers, but Coach Pete Carroll noted that he would evaluate the wideout and practice next week before determining his status for the November 11th game in San Francisco. Oh, that's right. We got to play Garoppolo.
Yep.
The former All-Pro could bring some big play potential to the Seattle offense that counts Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf as its top blah, 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 dot. I'm not going to read anymore. So anyways, good news.
Yes.
So he's not going to play until...
Not this week, but probably next week.
Maybe next week.
Yeah.
Hard maybe. Depends on how his knee is, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see what's up. Either way.
That's fucking exciting.
I like having him here.
Because I'm starting a small turnaround on my fantasy team. I'm doing okay. You know,
I'm still like 2-7. It's really bad.
Yeah, you're pretty far. You might be buying your mom dinner.
No. I'm not in last place. No, I'm not in last place.
That's right. And it's the loser has to buy the winner.
Correct.
Dinner in some fashion. Probably a gift card.
And I am playing Chad this week, who is like 7-1 or some such shit.
Yeah, you're El Fucko, dude.
No. I got this.
You got this.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna beat Chad's dick into the dirt.
I'm against Bremerton Big Nuts.
That's Joby.
And I think Joby's been having a rough go of it.
Yes. See,
And I am so like
That's why I'm
fucking
not in last
Garoppolo
place.
got 36.9 points the other day,
on your man.
which was surprising because that was a terrible game.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about it. Even if Minshew don't perform against the Texans, I'm okay. I still have I still got a good feeling about beating the big nuts.
Yeah. Come over here, Mama.
All right, dog,
love
get over
that
here.
spot,
Come here.
don't you?
Come here.
Okay. So we can do our picks for this week, and then we'll do next week's pick, and then
Do it.
after that, we'll be here for the ones after that. Okay. So Texans, Jaguars.
I got to go Jags because my boy Minshew.
We're going Texans.
Okay.
After that is Bears at Eagles. I think the Eagles are going to win that one.
Yeah, Bears are pretty garbage.
Yeah.
Philly.
Vikings at Chiefs after that. I think I'm going to go with the Vikings. I think the Vikings are going to win.
The Vikings?
Yep.
Against who?
Against the Chiefs.
Oh. Vikings. Yeah. Is that Minnesota? Eh?
Yep.
Over
Yep.
there?
After that is Colts at Steelers. I think the Colts.
Away or at home? For who? I
The
should say.
Colts are at the Steelers.
I'm going to go Steelers.
I'm going to go Colts.
Okay.
After that is Jets at Dolphins. I think I'm going to take the Jets on that one. Dolphins are ass. After that, Redskins at Bills. I think the Bills are going to win that one.
Bills and Bills.
After that, Titans at Panthers.
Yeah. We already did that.
Nah.
Titans and Panthers?
No.
Jacksonville Jaguars?
Uh,
Or the Panthers?
Yeah.
One. They're both the same.
it's the
Panthers.
Carolina Panthers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have not been doing so hot this year.
Neither of them.
Yeah.
The Titans are 4-4, and the Panthers are 4-3, so they're doing okay. In the Titans.
Yeah, I'm not going to give it to Cam.
After that, Lions at Raiders. Fucking. Also, just so everyone knows, I'm going to make Colin put in the work at the end of the season to try and find every single time he's written down these things so that we can know who won. Because we haven't been going over them week by week.
No, we haven't. And
So
I will
because
tell you
we-
right now, you've been whooping my ass.
So after at the end of the season, we'll make Colin dig out all the ones that he can find, and we'll see who can win.
I think I know where they all are.
And now that we've put him on blast on the internet, he's going to have no choice but to do it.
I'm telling you right now, unless I win, because we're at what game? 8, 9, 10,
This is
11?
week 9.
Week 9.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite I have to win every game or every matchup from now on, but it's getting close.
I'm excited to see
Okay.
how it turns out.
Well, either way, I take Oakland.
And I'm going to take the Lions on that one. I want Detroit.
Detroit Rock City.
After that is Buccaneers at Seahawks.
Go Hawks.
Yeah, that's a Seahawks win right there.
That's
And
going to be a
then-
really hard game to watch because they're going to play to the level of the Buccaneers, and it's going to be real risky. And I'm going to hate my life, and then they're going to win.
They're always
Terrible.
gripping. You know, it's rough to watch.
It is.
After
Why can't I
that
just
is
rule?
Packers at Chargers. I think the Packers take that one too.
Yeah, I'll give it to him.
And it's Browns at Broncos. I think the Browns actually win that one.
Browns. Check.
And then after that is Patriots at Ravens. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's going to be a great game Sunday night.
I'm going Pats.
Yeah, the Patriots probably win that game.
New England
And
Patriots.
then Monday is Cowboys at Giants, and I think the Cowboys win that game easy.
Yep. Giants
And then
suck.
We'll do week 10 real quick, and we'll get the fuck out of here. I think I only have like one more line left in my phone. So let's see. The Thursday game is Chargers at Raiders. Shit. I think the Chargers win that one, I guess.
Okay, I'll go Oakland.
And after that is Giants at Jets. New York, New York.
That's why would anybody want to watch that? I'm going Jets.
Yeah, Jets, I guess. After that is Falcons at Saints. That will be a good one.
I'm going Saints.
Yeah, I have to go with the Saints. I can't actually pick the Falcons. That's, after the Chiefs at Titans, I think the Chiefs probably win that one. After Chiefs at Titans, what do you think?
Ooh, I'll go Titans just to be different.
Just to be different. After that's Ravens at Bengals, I think the Ravens take that one.
Ravens, Bengals. The Bengals suck right now.
Terrible. That's
Baltimore.
Yep. And then after that is Bills at Browns, and I think that Buffalo takes that one too.
God, that's so bad. You want to take Bills on that one?
Yep, Bills.
Yeah, I hate to say it.
After that is Cardinals.
Bills ain't terrible anymore.
No, the Bills are doing pretty good actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is weird. New York, Buffalo.
Yeah.
I don't think of New York I don't think of Buffalo, New York when I think of Buffalo.
The Bills are 5-2.
Yeah, respectable.
After that is Cardinals at Buccaneers. Oh, geez. I think the Buccaneers probably win that one.
Yeah, Cardinals are straight trash.
Yeah, they looked pretty good against 49ers, but that's really it.
Larry Fitz got me like 4 points.
Yeah, did not do very much. It's disappointing.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to move on from Larry Fitz pretty soon.
Just try and trade him away, bro. Don't drop him.
Yeah, I'm not going to drop him. He's worth money to somebody who will make a mistake like I did.
Yeah. After that is Lions at Bears. I think Lions win that one.
The Bears. Just because I want to be different.
Dolphins at Colts. I think Colts win that one.
Yep.
Panthers at Packers. I think the Packers win that one.
Go Pack, go.
Rams at Steelers.
Rams.
I think the Steelers win that one.
Oh, look at you.
Vikings at Cowboys.
Vikings.
Cowboys.
Cowboys.
And then the Monday night game is Seahawks at 49ers.
Go Hawk, go. I'll root against Garoppolo.
I'll take the Hawks. Let's do it. They'll call us homers, Colin, but we think that they can do it.
I don't have a problem with being a homer. I fucking live here. This is my home.
I fucking live here. I love it.
You could tell me I can't root for my own team.
That's hilarious.
You're just nothing but muff gabbage.
My God.
You remember that. Yo, you been staying up on your South Park?
I haven't watched like the last episode. I watched the China episode. That was the last one I watched.
Yeah, I watched the first two.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like the Man Bear Pig came back or whatever in the first one, right? And then China. That was I want to talk so much shit on China.
China was hilarious.
China and all those fucking all the companies that are just like selling their souls to make money in China.
To communists.
I just like, bro. Did you not live through the 60s and 70s? Shit.
Don't
Communism,
you know?
bad. But whatever, hey.
All right, you ready to hit a line, get the fuck out of here?
Let's do it, baby.
You know what, man? Everyone with an ass wants to watch shit while they shit.
Hard no.
What? TV in the bathroom.
No.
Bye, everybody.